Hey everyone, and welcome to another video. Tonight we have 7 stories in total. We'll be starting things off with 2 longer stories, and then we'll have 4 shorter stories, and then we'll be closing things off with a short 6-part series. I hope you all enjoy them. I think this is one of the better videos I've made in quite a while. I really enjoyed the stories in this one, so I hope you all do too. If you do, please be sure to drop a like rating. Let's see if we can reach 500 likes on this one. I think if everybody took just a quick second, we could definitely get there. Subscribing if you are new is also very much appreciated, as I post content just like this all of the time. Anyways, sit back, do whatever it is that you do to relax, and as always, I hope you all have a great night. My name's Rick, or it used to be. When I woke up one morning, the guy in the mirror wasn't me. I'm not talking about a bad hair day or a weird dream. I mean, the face staring back at me was someone else's. A total stranger. I stumbled into the bathroom half asleep, switched on the light, and there he was. About 5 years older, short black hair, receding at the temples. Mine was full and dusty brown. A scar on the chin like he'd taken a bottle to the face once. Thick eyebrows. Brown, tired eyes. They were supposed to be green. I touched my own cheek. The mirror guy did the same. I blinked. He blinked. I pulled open the medicine cabinet, hoping to find something, anything that would explain this. Pills, booze, drugs. Nothing but toothpaste and an old bottle of Tylenol. The panic started hitting, so I yanked a hoodie over my head, pulling the drawstrings tight until my face was basically a shadow, and tiptoed downstairs. Kelsey, my girlfriend, was still asleep in bed. For a second, I thought about waking her, telling her everything, but how the hell do you even start that conversation? A lot of guys have woken up looking like crap, hungover from a bender, shiner from a bar fight, but no boyfriend has ever had to explain wearing another man's face. I grabbed my keys instead, made it halfway across the living room when I heard her scream, "Who the hell are you?" I turned and there she was, frozen at the top of the stairs, clutching a blanket to her chest. "Kelsey, it's me," I said, voice shaking. "It's Rick." Wrong move. She bolted toward the bedroom, shouting about calling the cops. She looked at me like I was some kind of monster. I'll never forget that look. I didn't stick around to see if she made the call, just jumped into my car and floored it out of the driveway, charging down the road without thinking. Out past the gas stations and boarded up strip malls. I pulled into the parking lot of a diner, a 24-hour greasy spoon with flickering neon signs. I needed a place to sit and think. The bell above the door jingled as I walked in. A few heads turned, but quickly went back to their coffees and scrambled eggs. I slid into a booth in the back, pressed against the window. A waitress approached, chewing gum lazily. "What'll it be, hun?" "Just coffee," I muttered. She walked off. I buried my face in my hands. I needed a plan. I needed answers. Should I check myself into a hospital? Go to the police? Hell, maybe find a motel and lay low until I figured it out. "Hey, there you are." I looked up. A man was standing at the edge of my booth, grinning ear to ear. He was big, beefy, with tattoos running up both arms. His eyes gleamed with something between recognition and excitement. "We've been looking all over for you, man," he said. "You're supposed to be at home." I blinked. "I think you have the wrong person," I said carefully. He laughed. "Come on, Alex. You forget your own name now?" Alex. The word hit me like a slap. "Sorry," I said. "I'm a little out of it." He clapped me on the back hard enough to rattle my teeth. No crap. Come on, let's get you back. Tara's worried sick. Tara. That name meant nothing to me. But right then, I didn't have any better options, and maybe they would help me figure out what the hell had happened. He drove an old Ford pickup, reeking of cigarettes. Been a rough couple of days, huh? He said, pulling out of the lot. Tara said you stopped taking your meds. Started talking crazy again. I stared at him. What do you mean? I ventured. He shot me a side eye. You know, about being somebody else, not remembering who you are, all that. My skin crawled. I turned to look out the window. The town blurred past. Shuttered stores, peeling billboards, cracked sidewalks. It all felt unfamiliar, like I was dropped in the middle of a movie I hadn't seen from the start. We pulled into a suburban street lined with sagging houses and unkempt lawns. He parked in front of a yellow house with peeling paint and a broken mailbox. You ready? He asked. No, but I nodded anyway. Tara was waiting at the door. She was mid-30s with short blonde hair and dark circles under her eyes. She looked at me with a complicated expression. Worry, frustration, love. Thank God, she said, pulling me into a tight hug. I stood stiffly, not knowing how to react. She pulled back, frowning. Are you okay? You look different. I tried to smile, but it probably looked more like a grimace. I'm fine, I lied. Let's get you inside. The house smelled like stale beer and old laundry. The living room was cluttered with toys, dolls, and action figures. Scattered across the floor, a little girl peeked around the corner, clutching a teddy bear. Hi, Daddy, she whispered. My heart cracked. I didn't know her. I didn't know any of them. But she knew me. Abby, I soon found, was her name. My daughter. Hi, I said, as softly as I could, and she ran and hugged my leg. The next few days were a blur. Tara handed me pills every morning, tiny white ones from a bottle labeled Halo Paradol. The label said, Alexander Marshall. I swallowed them without arguing. Better to be numb than to feel like I was in the wrong skin. The meds dulled everything, like living inside a padded room, watching the world through dirty glass. But they didn't erase my memories. I still remembered Kelsey, our first apartment above the bookstore, the way she used to wear my old hoodie on cold mornings, her laugh when she got nervous. I remembered being Rick Morrison, and this wasn't my life. Late one night, I woke up thirsty, in bed alone, still half-drugged from the pills. As I stumbled toward the kitchen, I caught a glimpse of Tara in the living room. She was kneeling in front of the coffee table, whispering to something small and dark sitting in the center. At first, I thought it was a statue. Some ugly figurine about the size of a football, carved like a man with wings folded over his face. Mouthless, knees drawn tight to his chest. Tara rocked back and forth, whispering words I wouldn't catch. I blinked hard, trying to focus. When she saw me, she snapped upright, blocking it from view with her body. You should be sleeping, she said sharply. I mumbled something and stumbled back upstairs. I told myself it was just grief, stress, medication. I told myself I was unreliable, delusional, insane, and had to lean on the people around me to know what was going on. Then it happened. I was on the couch when the news came on. Breaking, car crash off Route 7. I barely looked up until I heard the name. Richard Morrison, 32, found dead at the scene. My chest locked up. They showed my face on TV, my real face. Found dead in a ditch outside of town. They said I must have lost control, drunk maybe. No foul play suspected. Something snapped loose inside me. I waited until Tara and Abby were asleep, stole the keys off the kitchen counter, and drove. Headlights off, heart in my throat. I had to find Kelsey. Had to make her understand. I went back to my house, waiting out back in the rain. Kelsey arrived, heading inside. I didn't want to break in and scare her again, so I waited until she came out with a cigarette. She stood under the awning, shaking from either the cold or from holding it together too long, fumbling with a lighter. "Kelsey?" I said, stepping out from the shadows. She jumped, dropping the cigarette. Her eyes went wide. Fear, recognition, confusion, all smashed together. "You again," she said, voice trembling. "Why are you here?" "I know how this sounds," I said quickly, "but you have to believe me. I'm Rick." She shook her head, backing toward the door. No, you're sick. You broke into my house. You're crazy." I knew she'd say this, and I came prepared. "I know about the quarry," I said. "When you were 16, you broke your wrist sneaking in, trying to impress that idiot Jason. You lied and said you slipped on the stairs." She froze. I pressed on. "I know about the birthmark on your hip that you hate. I know you hate mint toothpaste, and pretended you didn't because I love it. I even told you not to smoke, but know you still do when you're stressed. Found that pack of cigarettes 3 months ago. Breast pocket of your pea coat with a rip in the lining. But I didn't tell you." Tears welled up in her eyes. "How?" she whispered. "I have no idea," I said. "I saw the news report, but that was my body, but I'm here. Somehow, this is me." Kelsey stood there, rain dripping from her light brown hair, staring at me like she was seeing a ghost. For a long time, neither of us said anything. Finally, she broke. "Get inside," she whispered, her voice cracking, "before someone sees you." The house was dim and cold. She didn't turn on the lights, just closed the door softly behind us and bolted it. That night I crashed on the couch, wrapped in a blanket that smelled faintly of home, detergent and Kelsey's old perfume. Neither of us slept much. She sat in the armchair across from me, sipping cold coffee. Every few minutes she'd look at me, studying my face, my gestures, the way I scratched my head or shifted my weight, looking for pieces of the man she lost, looking for proof. I didn't blame her. Sometimes I caught myself doing it too, trying to find myself in this stranger's skin. Over the next few days we started digging. She pulled out old photo albums. I pointed out things only Rick would know. Places we'd gone. Stupid inside jokes scribbled on the back of Polaroids. We went through my old texts and emails. Looked for anything about Alex Marshall. Nothing. No overlaps. No connections. One night we drove out to the crash site. Headlights cutting through the misty dark. Route 7 was deserted. The road wound between two rocky slopes, guardrails twisted like broken arms. We found the spot easily. A fresh patch of scorched earth, scattered glass glittering in the weeds. The official story said I veered off, hit the ravine, snapped my neck on impact. But standing there looking down at the wreckage site, it didn't feel like an accident. Kelsey shivered beside me, pulling her jacket tighter. She had told me that since that morning she first saw me as Alex, the Rick that returned home hadn't been acting like himself. He claimed he was out on a morning jog when I intruded, but he was cold, distant, going through the motions. Then a memory clicked into place, sharp, clear. On the way home I told Kelsey about the figurine, the mouthless thing Tara had been whispering to. The way she tried to hide it when she realized I was watching. Kelsey went still, her hand tightening around her coffee thermos. "Describe it again," she said. I did. She searched on her laptop using my description to find something. A pagan story older than any religion about a figure called the Morn Kin. He fit the description on the figurine to a T. A being that could swap one life for another. But the price was steep. The stolen soul would rot away, memory by memory, until nothing remained. Only the vessel, the body, would survive. Before we could scare each other any further, we decided to call it. Kelsey had made up the guest bedroom for me after the first night, but she didn't want to sleep alone. I told her I could take the floor and she could have the bed, as she shook her head and pulled me in, kissing me. She came away, saying it was the strangest thing. She knew I was physically different, but she could feel me in the kiss. It couldn't have been anyone else. We slept together that night, and I felt like I was home again, even if we had a long way to go. I was overwhelmed with the comforting sensation that we would figure it out together. The next morning we were awoken by 3 loud knocks on the front door. Kelsey sat bolt upright, heart hammering like mine. A voice called out from the porch. "Alex, you need to come home." It was Tara's brother, Wesley, the big guy who found me in the diner, and he wasn't alone. Through the blinds, I caught a glimpse of a patrol car. The police. Kelsey grabbed my hand, pulling me toward the back of the house. "Out the window," she hissed. We scrambled into the kitchen, wrenching open the tiny window above the sink. I barely fit through, landing hard in the wet grass behind the house. Kelsey tumbled after me. We sprinted into the woods, shoes slipping in the mud. Behind us, I heard the front door crash open, cops bursting inside. Then Tara's voice cutting through the morning air. "It's too late," she screamed. I didn't look back. We ran for what felt like hours, through the trees, down abandoned side roads, across parking lots slicked with rain. Found an old junkyard, busted open a rusted Ford that still had keys tucked behind the visor. We drove with the windows down, soaking wet, breathless. And when we thought we were clear, we pulled into a gas station outside of town. The lot was empty except for one truck. Wesley's truck. By the time we spotted it, he was already standing there behind my bumper, blocking us into our space. Waiting. Kelsey cursed under her breath, restarting the ignition like she was going to run him over. But in the rear view, Wesley held up one hand, not threatening or angry, just tired. I opened my door before she could stop me. Maybe I just needed answers, or maybe I was sick of running. Wesley didn't move, just looked at me, really looked, and said, "I'm not here to drag you back." "Then why are you here?" I asked. "To let you know." "Know what?" I asked. He lit a cigarette with shaking fingers, glanced toward the dark highway. "You were never supposed to survive it." "What is it, exactly?" I asked. "I don't know." He exhaled a cloud of smoke. "All I know is it trades one life for another. First time Tara did it, it was to a bully of hers in high school. Caused so much chaos. I never thought she'd use it again." "Then why did she?" I asked. "Because you..." He paused. "Alex wasn't well. He kept talking about leaving Tara. Didn't want to be with her anymore. And he was threatening to take Abby." He paused, then said, "Guess she figured she had a better shot at someone else in his body than no Alex altogether." "Why did you choose me?" I asked. He smiled and shook his head. "It chose you. We had nothing to do with it." In a weird way, this made sense. I was a perfect stranger, but I still didn't understand why he was here. What's the point of finding me, telling me all this? I could see regret in his eyes. Because it wasn't supposed to go down like this. You were supposed to forget right away. He shook his head. But she didn't count on you fighting it, on her still loving you, even as someone else. He looked toward Kelsey sitting in the car watching us terrified. You being around her, remembering who you are, that's what's screwing it all up. He said, it needs you broken, alone. That's how it finishes the job. But you wouldn't lay down. You kept fighting. Am I safe now? I asked earnestly. He thought about it. You bought time. I don't know how much, but use it while you can. He dropped the cigarette, grinding it under his boot. That's it? I said. He nodded. I'm sorry. Then he got back into his truck and drove away, his taillights shrinking into the dark. We fled again, not putting stock in anything he said, knowing it was better to keep running than to let our guard down now. New state, new town, new motel. Night after night. I was just glad to have Kelsey with me, and she felt the same. We didn't care where we were, as long as we were together. And it felt like maybe we had beaten it, until things started slipping. First, it was small stuff she had told me, things I should have remembered. Where we parked the car, what room we were staying in. I brushed these off. Everyone forgets sometimes. Then whole conversations were gone like smoke. I couldn't remember what we talked about or ate at dinner. Kelsey was concerned but kept me calm, hoping for the best despite the growing evidence to the contrary. Finally, one night we stopped at a nameless motel on the edge of town. It was cold, freezing. Kelsey said she was going back inside to grab her scarf. I sat on the curb smoking, watching the stars blink and shimmer in the distance, the kind of dark that illuminated them all but made everything else impossible to discern. And just then, I swear some of the stars seemed to brighten, forming the shape of something, a new constellation I'd never noticed before. A mouthless figure curled in on itself, wings folded across its face, knees drawn tight to its chest. The door creaked open behind me, footsteps on gravel. I turned. There was a woman standing there, mid-30s, light brown hair, warm but tired eyes, a scarf dangling from her hand. I stared at her as she approached, heart pounding for reasons I didn't understand. "Rick?" she said, voice trembling, giving me a look of concern. I stared at her for a long time, then I shook my head. "Sorry, ma'am," I said gently. "I think you have me mistaken for someone else." Her eyes pleaded with me, but I didn't know what for. Tears welled up and spilled down her cheeks. I shifted awkwardly, feeling bad. "Are you okay?" I asked. She shook her head no. I hesitated, the night pressing down around us. "Are you alone here?" I asked gently. For a moment, she just stared at me, searching for something in my face, something that wasn't there anymore. Then she nodded. I entered the department at around 10:30 p.m. The small Iowa town I worked in was quiet, so my hours often didn't extend past 7 or 8. As I hung my jacket, still damp from the cold November drizzle, Reeves walked in holding a few papers. "Sorry, boss, gotta get you to sign these," he said, his barely lit cigarette hanging from his mouth. The dark circles that gnawed under his eyes were at odds with the dim yellow light from the desk lamp. I sighed, falling into my chair as I scribbled my name across the papers. They were still warm, freshly printed. I leaned forward, rubbing my eyes as I dreamed of being back in my own bed. "This can't be the only reason you called me in here," I muttered, aching to go back home. "You said there was an emergency." "Well, kinda," he shrugged, smiled wryly. "May have exaggerated that a bit. Just got a call from a couple of folks near the old high school. They were hearing screams. Thought we should go check it out." "Probably just the wind or some BS. Do we really need to check it out? We've still got work tomorrow morning." He looked back at me, pushing some of his messy hair out of his face. He was a newer recruit, only a couple of years working here, yet he carried himself with the same fatigue as a worn vet. "No, we should. I wouldn't wish a sleepless night on others." I sighed again and nodded. Town only had about 1,500 people, so we're known by name. Ignoring even a small incident like this means I'll have a personalized complaint, something I don't want to deal with. "Alright, but we've got to be quick about it. Don't want my bed to be cold when I get back." We hop in the patrol car, a crappy 96 Caprice. The town doesn't have that much need for police, so we essentially get hand-me-down equipment from the state. "So, screams, huh?" I sighed. Reeves lit another cigarette. "What do you think it is this time? A cat? Maybe a couple high schoolers messing around?" He took a long drag, almost savoring it. "Don't really care. Doesn't change the fact we gotta deal with this." He reached out, offering me his already half-burned cigarette. "Sorry, don't smoke," I said half-heartedly. "Wife made me quit. Can't be dying and leaving her and the kids to fend for themselves." "Oh, since when? Yesterday?" He laughed, his voice cracking a bit with the cold air. "Come on, one won't kill you. Besides, if anything, you smoke more than me." "I'm serious. I made a promise to my wife." I smiled, though my face felt tired. One smoke turns to 2, then 3, then to 10. Next thing you know, we'll be stopping at Lou's to get another pack on the way back. "Suit yourself," he said, turning back to his window. "It's already been a long night, and I got a feeling it ain't gonna get any shorter." We pulled into the dilapidated parking lot of Eaton High, the old town high school. The building had seen better days, practically neglected following the opening of Hillside across town a couple years back. We stepped out of the car, breath visible as rain lightly fell from the pitch-black sky. I pulled out my flashlight, illuminating a clear path to the entrance. Reeves tossed his smoke, following closely behind. There were no other sources of light aside from the street lamps a couple 100 feet away. As we got to the door, Reeves hesitated. "You feel that?" he asked, his eyes on high alert. "Feel what?" "Exactly," he said, scanning the parking lot. There was no one, just our patrol car. A slight pinging noise echoed as the rain pranced on the lonely vehicle. "Where's the wind?" "The wind?" "Yeah, where is it?" "What are you on about?" I said, exasperated. "Does there need to be wind?" "We live out in the open plains of Iowa. I don't think I can remember a day without at least a slight breeze hitting my face, especially when it's raining like this." I thought about it. As I looked back on my time here, I couldn't recall any windless days. "What does this have to do with anything?" "Don't know. Just feels strange." He pushed his hair back again as he went to open the double doors guarding the main entrance. I pointed my flashlight through the glass, getting a sneak peek of the layout. Dusty ceramic tiles, old lockers, and some graffiti met my gaze. Nothing looked out of place, although I'm not sure I'd know the difference if something was. Reeves pushed open the doors, surprisingly not locked, and headed inside. I followed closely, looking at the surrounding area. It looked like a typical high school, aside from the occasional art piece sprayed carelessly on the wall. The building was 2 stories, and consisted of 6 wings, labeled A through F. The school was organized nicely, with certain kinds of classes isolated in certain wings. Notably, the school was silent, almost eerily, aside from the noises coming from Reeves and myself. The school was dead. Reeves made his way to the A wing, which housed the electrical unit for the school. It was also where the music department was located. As we approached, I kept looking around. It was musty, a lack of cleaning and ventilation leaving the air stale. The halls were lined with music lockers, and a few classrooms. Though the lockers were left empty and ajar, I poked my flashlight through a small window in one of the doors, revealing the old auditorium. Though still in fine shape, it was silent. I scanned the area, looking for any potential source of the reported screams. "Found it," Reeves said excitedly. I jumped, his voice still ringing in my ears in contrast to the silence of the school. "Jesus, kid," I whispered as I made my way to him. "Don't scare me like that. Can't be screaming like that out of the blue." Sorry, he said, rolling his eyes. "Didn't know you scare easy like that." I pointed my flashlight at the panel board. All switches were flipped off. "What rooms you want lit up?" "Just do the hallways. Flashlights should cover the rest pretty easily." As he flipped the switches, the dim lights flickered on, slightly illuminating the rundown building. "We may as well have just left him off," Reeves remarked, laughing softly. "Better than nothing," I replied as we made our way back to the main hall. We had yet to hear any noises, much or less screams. We walked through the halls cautiously. Something about dark, old rundown buildings makes you feel on your toes. We browsed the classrooms, pointing our flashlights into the occasionally open door. Nothing too out of the ordinary, just the occasional graffiti or misplaced desk. I sighed. I wanted to go home, back to the comfort of my own bed. As much as I like Reeves, my ideal night did not include scouring an abandoned school with him at dang near midnight. "Want to just go home?" Reeves suggested. He was standing in front of me, obviously bored out of his mind. "It's almost midnight. We've been here for close to an hour. Maybe the folks who reported it just had a bad dream or something." "Sure, why not?" I smiled a bit. "Would make the wife a lot happier if I was back home." We turned to leave, both relieved this excursion amounted to nothing. Then we heard it. A scream. Human. A blood-curdling noise to hear, especially against the dead silence prior. It resonated through the halls as Reeves and I ran toward the source. We ended up in the D wing, where the history and English classes were located. I pulled out my gun and Reeves followed suit. The screaming had ceased for the time being, as if it knew we were coming. We split up, scouring the old rooms for any sign of life. Just as I approached the end of the wing, Reeves' voice broke the newfound silence. "Got something." I ran over to him, adrenaline still rushing through my spine. As I approached, I saw him crouched, talking to a little girl. She couldn't have been older than 5. Messy hair with a white dress with pink flowers. Her blue eyes met my gaze calmly, a sort of calm not usually seen in children. "What's going on?" I panted, out of breath from the cardio we just did. "Did she scream?" "Don't know." Reeves was fixed on the girl, his eyes softening as he looked at the girl. "You got a name, sweetheart?" She nodded shyly, playing with her hair. "Care to share it with us?" I asked. She looked back up at me, glaring slightly. She quickly turned back to Reeves, who smiled a bit. "Guess we know who her favorite is," he joked. "Don't blame ya, sweetheart. He isn't much of a looker." "Ha ha. Now ask her what her name is," I stated bluntly. "We need to find her parents." "True. he said. Though she doesn't seem too inclined to speak. Don't even know if it was her who screamed. We also don't know what a little girl is doing alone in an abandoned school. Reeves covered her ears, glaring at me a bit. Not in front of the kid. Sorry, I apologized. Though my suspicions were mounting as the initial adrenaline wore out. Her being here raises a few questions, though. There's no way her parents took her to an abandoned school, which means she either brought herself or was brought here. And I don't know too many 5-year-olds inclined to explore abandoned buildings at midnight. You saying there's someone else here? Of course I am. I can't think of any reason why or how she'd be here by herself. Reeves looked back up at me, still crouched by the newly found girl. He looked like he'd just seen a ghost. Know something else? His face was pale as he turned back to the girl. I've seen this girl before. I know it in my gut. My eyes have seen this face before, but for the life of me, I can't pinpoint where. He looked at the girl a bit longer, who was still fidgeting with her hair. Want to tell us your name? Who brought you here? Reeves asked softly, though the girl did not answer. Instead, she took off into the main hall. Hey, don't run. It ain't safe in here, Reeves called out as we took off after. She made a beeline for the gym as we followed close behind, shoes squeaking against the faded tiles. We entered the gym, though the girl was gone. I could have sworn we were only a few steps behind her. We looked around, dumbfounded. How had this girl vanished? We didn't have much time to react to the strangeness of our current situation before Reeves shouted. I glanced over to where his flashlight was pointed. At the edge of the gym, barely illuminated, was a body, face down on the dirty hardwood floor, blood forming a pool around the head. A man, messy blonde hair splattered red, 3 distinct bullet holes poking through the back of his skull. His body was splayed out, clad in a brown flannel and jeans. Call some backup, I ordered Reeves. We gotta get this building locked down. Who do you think did this? Reeves asked, still staring in shock at the body. Probably whoever brought the girl here, I said bluntly. I don't know what's going on here, but we've got a murder and potential kidnapping. We're out of our depth. Who should I call for backup? Milton? Milton won't be able to do anything. Call the Des Moines apartment. They're only half an hour away. I scanned the surrounding gym. Where had the girl gone off to? As I tried to piece a reasonable explanation together, Reeves called me back over to the body. Toss me the walkie, will ya? Reeves said, still staring at the corpse. I unclipped it from my belt and handed it to him, careful not to contaminate the crime scene. He started flipping through channels, eventually landing on our shared frequency with the Des Moines department. We've got a 707 and a potential 710 here at Eaton High, requesting backup. No response. The static filled the once silent room with an eerie buzz. Do you copy? Reeves looked up at me confused. The people working at Des Moines often pulled late nights, having people on standby the full 24 hours for cases such as these, but no response. There hadn't even been the slightest indication there was anyone on the other end of the line. Did you check the channel? I asked, hoping his tired eyes accounted for our lack of communication. Yeah, channel 6. Reeves said, puzzled. I'm positive this is the right channel. I used it a couple months ago for that thief we were tracking down. He was right. Channel 6 was a direct line of communication to Des Moines, yet the static persisted. I rubbed my eyes. The night just kept getting stranger. Why couldn't this have just been some animal? Some sort of BS we could write off. Did you check the time? I think there's some sort of shift change at midnight. Maybe the operator overseeing the graveyard shift hasn't clocked in yet. Don't think it's that, Reeves said, staring at his watch. It's 11:39. You serious? I froze up, glancing at my own watch. Sure enough, it read 11:39, 6 seconds. It was 11:39 half an hour ago. Check the second hand, Chief. I glanced back at my watch, and sure enough, the seconds hand was still reading 6 seconds. It kept ticking, jolting right back to the same mark. What's going on? I muttered, shifting back slightly. Nothing was making sense. Maybe our watches broke, though with everything that's happened, I doubt it. Reeves circled around the body, still trying to piece some sort of reasonable explanation together. Also, do you remember hearing a gunshot? Much or less 3 of them? What? Blood's still fresh. Usually takes 30 to 60 minutes to dry. His eyes remained trained on the body. We've been here for about an hour, yet the blood is still wet. He put his hand over the body. Still a bit warm as well. Should have at least gone cold by now. What we've got here is a fresh body. My eyes widened. None of it added up. What the hell are we dealing with then? I don't know, Reeves continued. But whoever did this is most likely still here. Girl as well. We can't get in contact with Des Moines, so we're on our own. I gazed at the surrounding gym. The musty smell of old wood met my nose as my flashlight illuminated the dusty bleachers. The girl must also still be here. No way a young kid like that could make it far. For now, let's stick together, I said, glancing back over at Reeves. His eyes were trained back on his watch. We don't exactly know what we are in for. Reeves nodded as we both turned back to the main hallway. As we stepped back into the light, we were met with a scream. It sounded as if it were on top of us, resonating from us. It was piercing, a scream populated with loss and sorrow. Reeves and I covered our ears, though that effort was in vain. Just as soon as it had started, it stopped. I looked back at Reeves, whose eyes were now wild with shock. What just happened? I don't know, I replied. Can't even begin to try and explain. PA system malfunction? Man, Reeves rubbed his ears in discomfort. Didn't know these old PA systems had that kind of juice. I also didn't turn this back on the panel board. Kid may have gotten to it, I said. Or worse yet, our suspect. We made a beeline for the panel board, hoping to end this awful night once and for all. As we approached the A-wing, we could hear the distinct clicks from the panel board switches. They were rapid, nonsensical. Someone just flipping them with no sense of what they even do. The panel board door was wide open when we arrived, though everything was where we had left it. Is someone messing with us? Reeves said, exhausted from the oddities of the night. Like, who was just flipping through all of these? Are we both going crazy or something? I shrugged, my mind alert that the killer could be around any corner. Just then, Reeves turned back to the door. Oh, it's you. The little girl stood silently at the entrance to Wing A, playing with her hair. She waved at Reeves, beckoning him forward. All right, I guess, Reeves said, responding to some unspoken message. His eyes were bloodshot, tired. Each step he took appeared a challenge, as if he was falling forward and catching himself. Where do you want to go? The little girl took off. Reeves followed suit. Reeves? I shouted, chasing after. What's gotten into you? I reached out, desperately trying to grab onto his coat. Getting split up with a potential killer loose in the halls is the last thing we should have wanted. As Reeves passed through the double doors guarding the A-wing entrance, they slammed shut, almost taking my fingers off in the process. Reeves! I shouted again, banging against the door. "Open the door. We've got to stick together. We haven't got the foggiest idea what's happening." Silence. I pounded on the door, begging Reeves to come back, but I was stuck. What had gotten into him? Just a few minutes ago, he was preaching the idea of sticking together, and now this? I stood confused, wondering what I should do next. Just then, I heard the auditorium door slam shut. I made my way to the door cautiously, peeking into the small window the door possessed. The stage light was on, and standing in it was my wife, Maya. She stood tense, wearing a sundress I bought her only a few months prior. Her brown hair shined under the piercing light, though her look was nervous. A bed lay behind her. Why was she here? I tried opening the door, but it was locked. The handle wouldn't budge. As I struggled to open the door, a group of 6 dark figures stepped onto the stage. They were clad in black robes, faceless shadows that haunted her. I watched as these things slowly undressed her, her now naked self lying on the bed set up on stage. The figures stepped back, forming a circle around her as she lay still. I called out to her, tried wrestling with the door handle again, but nothing worked. My continued was cut short as a man emerged from behind the stage. His back was turned toward me, revealing only his messy hair and brown flannel. Brown flannel. God, it was the same man we'd found dead mere moments before. What kind of game is this? I watched as he approached the bed, the figures humming a soft tune I couldn't understand. I screamed as he mounted her, raped her. She cried out for someone, anyone, yet the figures only watched. She writhed as the man lay on top of her, having his way. I pounded on the door, screaming. "Hey," I cried out, though my call was ignored. "Get off of her!" My voice was cracking. I took a step back, now using my body as a battering ram against the solid wood door. I drove my shoulder into the door as my wife screamed out. God, the screams. My head hurt. My shoulder ached as I kept ramming into the door. I let out a yell, a primal wail that brutalized the air around me. I flew into the auditorium as the door yielded, falling forward into the rows of chairs. As I shot up in anger, I noticed the stage lay empty. The scene I had so vividly endured was gone. Not a whisper remained. "I've got to be dreaming," I muttered to myself, laughing. "I've just gotta. None of this stuff I've had the pleasure of seeing tonight makes sense." I buried my face in my hands. What had I just witnessed? What does it mean? The screams, the clock, the body, the wind. What could possibly be going on? I couldn't think for long as I heard a giggle of a small child. I looked up, meeting the gaze of the same little girl who took Reeves. She smiled at me, contrary to the usual scowl I received. She waved at me as she ran behind the stage, giggling as she went. I got up, still disgruntled from the previous display. I ran after her, hoping to find some answers, hoping to find Reeves. As I ran past the curtains, I found myself outside, but not into the cold November night Reeves and I had left earlier to examine the school, but a warm afternoon. The sun was still up, though drooping slightly to the west. A warm breeze met my cold face, offering a bit of comfort. What had I stumbled upon? I looked at my surroundings. I was in a park. The trees were bright green, the leaves rustling as the breeze overtook them. The grass was soft, my shoes sinking just slightly with each step. Kids swarmed the playground, laughing and playing, fighting and crying. The little girl looked back at me, giggling as she beckoned me to further explore. Why was I here? I looked back for the stage curtains, but they were gone. Was I trapped? My clothes remained the same, as I was adorned in a jacket not suitable for the sunny summer weather I found myself in. This had to be a dream. All of it. I watched as the little girl made her way to a man. Messy hair, brown flannel. Fury raged in my chest as I took off toward him, tackling him to the ground. As I grabbed his collar, I got a closer look at him. It was Reeves. I faltered, loosening my grip as he smiled at me. "What's going on, man? Long time no see." He sat up, leaning back up against the grassy hill as he brushed himself off. "What the—" I stammered. "How did you get here? What is this?" I paused as I let my shock wear off. "Why did you screw my wife?" He paused, confused. "Not exactly sure what you're asking. We're at Legion Park with my daughter." He picked up the little girl, giving her a kiss on the cheek. "Little Riley here loves this park. Won't shut up about it at home. Ain't that right?" He nodded shyly, burying her face into his sleeve. "Is this a dream?" I asked, dumbfounded. "More like a memory," Reeves responded, setting Riley down. She took off, heading straight for the playground. "I don't remember this." I stared, confused as Reeves smiled. "Didn't say it was yours, boss." He sat down in the grass. I sat next to him, digging my hands into the soft earth. I clenched my fists, pulling out clumps of wet dirt and grass as I did. Reeves looked at me concerned. "Here," he said as he reached into his pocket. He pulled out a pack of smokes. "It'll help take the edge off." I inhaled as he lit the tip, letting the warm smoke fill my lungs. God, how I needed it. I exhaled, letting the gravity of my situation leave as I did. "Why did you screw my wife?" I asked solemnly. I leaned forward, burying my head between my knees. "Why are you wearing the clothes of a dead man?" Reeves stared, a bit confused. "I don't follow." "I saw you, in the auditorium, screwing my wife. Some cult people watched as you did it." I was starting to yell. Kids were starting to stare. I took another long drag from the dead man's cigarette. "You're wearing the same clothes as the guy we found dead in Eton. Don't you remember? We were on a case, investigating the screams." Reeves smiled softly, trying to comfort me. "You're exhausted," he said, placing his hand on my shoulder. "I still don't understand. Maybe you should get some sleep." I laid my head against the grass as the sun poked through the leaves overhead. Am I hallucinating? Did that scream mess with my brain or something? "Are you sure that's your daughter?" I asked. "You couldn't remember her face when we saw her in the school." He laughed, shaking his head a bit. "You and this school of yours," he joked. "You'd think I would recognize my own daughter." I just stared in utter confusion. I didn't know what to make of all of this. I offered him his cigarette back, only half burned. "Nah, you finish it," he smiled. "I don't really smoke anymore." I stared. Now I knew I was dreaming. "You've got to be kidding me. This has to be some sort of dream," I said, laughing. "Reeves doesn't want to smoke? What kind of fairy tale is this?" "I told you, it's not a dream." Reeves stared, his smile gone. "It's a memory, and if you want out, fine." The A-wing doors appeared in the distance. I looked, shocked. Reeves was now staring at me, smile gone. His eyes were still warm, but filled with sorrow. "Just remember, this is what could have been," he said. Tears filled his eyes. "Reeves, what are you saying?" "Just remember, we are all corpses here, the ones left in your wake." He cried out as he turned his head. The kids had stopped playing. The parents had stopped talking. They had all turned toward me, turning their heads. Their heads started twisting past the natural limit. They all cried out as the tendons in their necks snapped. Reeves looked at me, screaming as his head completed rotation after rotation. His daughter Riley stood next to him, enduring the same fate. I watched in horror as their heads popped off one by one. Blood gushed from the open necks as bodies toppled, children and parent alike. Reeves wailed, his head now purple. "Leave, now," he gurgled under his final breath. I turned and ran for the doors as the trees decayed around me. The sky turned gray and the grass withered and died. I sprinted, unable to make anything out of the conversation I had just had. As I pushed through the doors, I heard a scream. The same scream I had heard all night. I didn't look back, letting the doors slam shut behind me. I was back at Eaton High, the same abandoned school Reeves and I had entered. The dim hall lights were still on as I made my way through the building, calling out for Reeves. As I stumbled through the halls, I noticed the front office lights were on. I made my way forward, hoping Reeves would be in there. He has to be. I couldn't take any more nonsense tonight. I approached the desk, half expecting Reeves to be there. How I wished he was there. Instead, a single case file met my gaze. A bit of dust coated the brown packet as I picked it up. It was filed by the Des Moines Department on August 13th. The year remained the same. I sat down at the desk, compelled to read it. Something told me I must. I opened it up as the memory came to me. What have I done? Case file, robbery, filed by Officer IA 2375 at approximately 11:39, August 12th, 20XX. God, what have I done? Detective Ramirez, do you recall what exactly transpired? It was a warm August night. No wind. Officer 2375. Yes, I do. I had just gotten home from work. Another late night at the station. Detective Ramirez. Can you give an account of what exactly went down? I was tired, worn down. Just wanted to get some sleep. Officer 2375. I was at home. Just got back from work. I heard noises coming from the master bedroom. Officer 2375. I heard noises coming from my driveway. I opened the door. Officer 2375. I went to go check it out. My wife was in bed, though she wasn't sleeping. Officer 2375. Saw a man clad in all black. Couldn't make out his face. A man lay on top of her, buried in the sheets. Officer 2375. I was scoping out the house. At the time, I didn't know if he had a gun. I saw his messy hair, brown flannel. Officer 2375. I went to alert my wife, called up my partner Reeves to get over there. She yelled when she noticed me. The man turned around. Officer 2375. He broke the window, forcing himself in. Reeves looked at me shocked. Officer 2375. He proceeded to shoot 2 shots into the ceiling. Warning shots. He couldn't believe I caught him. Officer 2375. My wife ran from out of the bedroom, holding the house gun. I couldn't take it. Officer 2375. He shot her dead in front of me. I just couldn't take it. Officer 2375. Reeves was gunned down. I didn't count the number of shots. I shot Reeves 3 times. Officer 2375. I thought I was next. My wife screamed. Oh, how that scream blinded me. Officer 2375. But he went for my car keys, demanded my wallet. I unloaded the remaining 3 bullets into her skull. Officer 2375. He just took my car and drove away. Oh God. What have I done? My dad never let me own a phone. He'd already lost one son to an online predator, and he wasn't going to let it happen again. I tried to explain that I wasn't like Kyle. I didn't want to meet up with anyone from the internet. All I wanted was to message my friends and watch YouTube videos on the bus. But Dad wouldn't have it. Since Kyle disappeared, I barely left my room. When dinner was ready, I waited until Dad had finished eating before I grabbed my plate. Easier that way, without him watching. If I ate too slowly, he'd snap. "What, not good enough for you?" Before, Kyle used to redirect our old man's anger at himself, shielding me from the worst of it. He'd taken a beating once when I knocked over a can of red paint in the garage. Whenever someone asked about the purple bruise under his eye, he'd say it came from playing hockey. I never got the chance to thank him for that. I worked part-time bagging groceries at the Quick Mart and saved $200. One of my friends, Devin, sold me a cheap Motorola smartphone. I added people's socials, installed YouTube, Spotify, and a few other apps, and set up this Reddit profile. I couldn't risk Dad finding out the phone, so I pried up a floorboard in our bedroom, my bedroom, to hide it. I had to keep reminding myself of that. Without Kyle, there was no more our room, our desk, or our wardrobe. It was all mine, and that's all it ever would be. With steady internet access, my morbid curiosity got the better of me, and I googled Kyle's name. Recent articles popped up, and a headline on an obscure news site froze me. Father investigated in missing child's case. The photo showed Dad stepping in, or out, of his Lexus. Suddenly his boots echoed on the staircase. I slid the phone back under the floorboards and hopped into bed, pulling the cover to my chin. Dad leaned in my doorway, slurring, "Good night, Bailey." Lately I'd caught him hiding a flask of whiskey in his jacket. It hadn't been this bad since the early months of the divorce. "Good night, Dad," I replied. But a question escaped me. Is there any new information on Kyle? His expression sobered. "You know the rule. You don't talk about him. It's not for you to worry about." When he left, he kept the door ajar. I considered closing it, but if he went to the bathroom during the night and found it shut, he'd chew me out. I rolled onto my side and tried to sleep. I was beginning to drift off, my thoughts bleeding into hazy dreams, when the sound started. Scratch, scratch, scratch. It reminded me of nails on skin or a shovel in dirt. I looked down at the floorboard I'd hidden the phone under, and the scratching stopped, as if it were saying, "Yes, it's me. I'm here." Had I left Spotify playing by mistake? Carefully I slipped from the bed and crouched by the floor, glancing at the door to be sure Dad wasn't watching. I pressed my ear to the boards and listened. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Then I recognized the sound. Fingers clawing through soil, as if something was climbing up from beneath the house. I jumped back into bed and closed my eyes, desperately trying to ignore the sound. It was an absurd thought, not one a rational mind interprets. Yet I couldn't bring myself to lift the floorboard and look inside. The next morning, I asked Dad what it could be. He had an immediate answer. Rats. They'd probably nested in the walls and floor. One must have fallen into a gap and trapped itself. Night after night, the scraping continued. I wondered how long a rat could survive. 5 days? A week? By the end of 2 weeks, I knew it couldn't be a rat. The sounds grew louder, closer. At times, when there was no wind outside, I'd hear weak, whistling breaths creeping up from the floorboard. I forced myself to endure it for 2 more days, determined to block out the noises until they faded, until last night when everything changed. The scratching began as usual around 2 or 3 in the morning, but after a few hours it stopped. Silence stretched, and for a peaceful moment I thought it may have stopped. But then the scraping resumed, rougher, fingernails against wood. The loose floorboard wobbled open as something shifted beneath. Too terrified to look, I grabbed a stack of textbooks and placed them onto the board. The wobbling ceased, but on the other side the scratching continued. I stayed awake until dawn, and at first light, I finally removed the textbooks and lifted the floorboard. Inside, my phone was gone, fallen into what had replaced it, an arm-sized hole leading into blackness. My heart pounded as I stared down the void. Without my phone, I had no light to shine inside and see how deep it was. So instead, I leaned closer and hovered my ear over the hole. Breathing. The weak, whistling breaths I'd heard earlier, like the lungs were filled with dirt. My pulse quickened. It couldn't be true. It'd be ridiculous to even consider it, but I found myself confronting the possibility. Something was buried down there. At school the next day, I borrowed Devon's phone and called my number. Devon gave a short laugh. "You think the thing in the hole knows how to use a phone?" The phone rang 7 times, then clicked as someone answered. "Hello?" I whispered. A voice I knew all too well. Kyle's voice crackled through the static. "Don't trust him." It started with a simple task, cleaning out my closet. It's one of those things I put off every few months, but this time I decided to take care of it. My closet's a mess. Old clothes from college, jackets that don't fit anymore, random things I've collected over the years. You know the type. I reached for a jacket that I hadn't worn in ages, one that was a bit too small but always reminded me of simpler times. Walking around campus, running late for classes, just the usual college life. I pulled it out from the back of the closet, shook off the dust, and noticed something odd. There was something in one of the pockets. I don't remember putting anything in it, and I've had this jacket for years. I didn't even know the last time I wore it, but the thought of finding something inside felt weirdly comforting. It was a small folded-up piece of paper, the kind of paper that felt old and familiar but still had a little crisp. I unfolded it, half expecting to find some stupid receipt or an old ticket from a concert I'd forgotten about, but instead it was a note, written in my handwriting. I froze. It wasn't the kind of note I would have written recently. It was my handwriting from years ago, but I'm certain I didn't write this. The words were clear, precise, and strangely calm. Here's what it said. "Do not open the door at 3:23 a.m. Don't listen to the knock." My blood ran cold. I didn't even know what to think. I looked at the clock. It was 3:22 a.m. I checked the time again. 3:22 a.m. How could this note have been written by me? I haven't written anything like this in years. I couldn't remember ever making a note like this, and yet there it was, in my handwriting, in my jacket pocket, as if it had been placed there just moments ago. I stared at the paper for what felt like an eternity. The smell of old leather and paper in the room suddenly felt too thick, like the air was closing in on me. I thought about tossing the note, throwing it away, or burning it, but something made me keep reading. I'm not joking. The knock will come. It will be faint at first, but it will get louder. Don't answer the door. It's not you on the other side. That part didn't even make sense. It made my head hurt just reading it. But before I could make sense of it, the strangest thing happened. I heard it. A knock. I know it sounds crazy, but it wasn't just any knock. It was like someone was tapping on my door, just hard enough for me to hear, but soft enough that it almost sounded like I imagined it. I looked up, my heart pounding, and checked the time again. 3:23 a.m. There it was, just like the note said. My mind raced, trying to rationalize it. Maybe it's a neighbor. Maybe I'm just hearing things. I stood there frozen for a while, staring at the door, waiting for more knocks. Something. Anything, but it didn't come. For a while the silence was almost unbearable, and then I heard it again. This time it was more deliberate, louder, almost as if it was an actual person on the other side. Someone knocking slowly, methodically, like they knew I was there, but that's impossible, right? I'm here alone. No one has keys to my apartment. No one should even know I'm up this late. I've read enough horror stories to know where this is going, but something feels off. This isn't like any other story I've read. This feels personal, like it's meant for me. That's what's scaring me the most right now. I'm not answering the door. I swear I'm not. But every time I look at the clock, it's like I can feel the time slipping by. The knocking hasn't stopped. It's still there. Faint, rhythmic, almost a whisper at this point. I can't tell if it's just my mind playing tricks on me, or if it's something else. So here I am, writing this because I don't know who else to tell. I don't know what to do. The note was right. 3:23 a.m. came and went, and now I'm sitting here in the dark, listening to something I can't explain. But if the note was right about that, then what else is true? What else is coming? I'm scared to find out. I became a smoker when I was 16. I stole 2 cigarettes that my older brother left on the dashboard of our car. In my head, I couldn't blame this on his carelessness. I didn't even have a reason to start smoking. I just wanted to know what it was like. Curiosity killed the cat and all that. A week after I had found them, I waited until it was past 11 and the house was asleep. I opened the window and climbed out onto the back roof overlooking the marsh. I used a candle match to light it. Funnily enough, I actually lit the filter instead of the tobacco end, and I sat there wondering what all the buzz was about. It tasted vaguely burnt, and I couldn't even blow out the smoke like I'd seen in movies. I stubbed it into the windowsill and chucked it into the marsh, too scared of my parents' wrath to try and dispose of it any other way. I watched the orange spark, still left on the end of it, disappear into the long grass until the darkness enveloped it. Of course, now I know I was being careless, but back then I was too self-absorbed to think about the animals or the possibility of a wildfire. All I really cared about was not getting in trouble. The second cigarette I'd ever smoked, I smoked it properly. It was broken in half with the tail hanging off, so I broke off the end of it and lit the paper still left. The filter was in my mouth this time, and I suddenly got why my entire family risked lung cancer every day. I held it between 2 fingers and felt so unbelievably cool when I released the smoke in my mouth. The vague burning was more of an ash this time, stuck on my teeth and the back of my throat. I cannot explain what was so pleasant about it. As I'm sure any smoker could tell you, you don't know why they do it until you've done it. I stubbed it shortly thereafter, since there wasn't much paper to burn, but the damage was done, and I was hooked. I knew when I chucked it into the marsh grass that it would not be the first time, and that fact settled over me. With a finality I accepted quickly. I brushed my teeth thoroughly after every smoke break. It started just at night, and then in the evenings after school when I knew my mother would be cooking dinner. Anytime I was stressed, I needed a cigarette. I craved the burn at the back of my throat. I wouldn't say I was fully addicted at that point. Since I was limited in my supply, I would be able to steal 1 or 2 a week. And even when I eventually started buying them off kids at school, I was too lazy to get a job and could only afford a pack once a month. Even as my habits changed, the place I smoked them never did. I still sat perched on my rooftop, feet dangling over the edge, and when I was done I would chuck them as far as I could into the marsh grass. It became a game in my head. If I could get farther than the last one, how long I could still see the ash in the dim sky. Once at 2 or 3 a.m., I was splayed out over the roof on my back. The cigarette between my fingers was almost finished, and when I held it in the air to blow it out, it fell directly on my face. I cursed and sat up, twisting it into the roof in frustration, but out of the corner of my eye, I saw something in the marsh. I spun my head around and saw the dark figure of a tall man. His silhouette was odd and unnerving, body too skinny to hold a head that large. He stared at me, arms at his side. I nearly fell off the roof. I used the heels of my boots to push myself up and grab the windowsill. I shut my eyes tight as I climbed back through and plopped down on my bed. I whipped around to shut and lock my window. I snuck a peek out of the blinds, but he was gone. I've never been sure if I actually saw something out there. I was tired, and unless he laid himself down in the wet mud or gained super speed, I couldn't figure out how he'd gotten out of my sight within that minute. It frightened me out of smoking for all of a week. And then I was back to my old habits. Except now I smoked in the park. My window remained locked until I moved out. I still thought I saw him out of the corner of my eye sometimes, but I was also always known to be paranoid. I'm 28 now. I quit smoking last year when I got pregnant with my daughter. My husband and I are living in an apartment a long way from my childhood home. We're on the final floor, high in the air with no balconies or ledges for my daughter to sneak out of when she's older. Quitting smoking was one of the best decisions of my life. I have more money in my pocket to spend on my little girl. My anxiety has almost entirely ceased. Last week I burnt dinner. It wasn't a big deal, but the kitchen stunk. I decided to slide open a window to let some air in. I dropped the glass of water I was holding. It shattered on the floor. My husband ran over and found me confused, a hand up to my open mouth. On the windowsill, 400 feet in the air, was a mound of burnt cigarettes. Long pieces of grass were poking out of it, covered in mud. The sun was just beginning to set beyond the mountains, which encircle my hometown, when a spring rainstorm popped up. I hadn't expected rain. The forecast had been showing clear skies all day long. It started as nothing more than a drizzle, and quickly became a deluge before subsiding back to a drizzle. As the downpour waxed and waned all around, I was disturbed to hear a sound which was not born of nature. It was the sound of somebody trying my back door's handle. The torrential rain slowed down long enough to hear a slow, low, disappointed voice say, "Locked up tight." I felt panicked. Something was trying to get into my house. I was allowed only a second to grapple with this realization before I was wrenched back into the present by the sound of thunder slamming itself against my side door. The knob attempted to turn uselessly against its locked mechanism. The voice came again, this time sounding devastated, as if encountering a locked door while trying to gain entry to my home were one of fate's cruel tricks. Locked up nice and proper. My heart skipped a beat at the sound, and it skipped another when I turned to look at my front door, unlocked. I ran for the door. I doubt that I've ever moved that fast before, and I'm sure I could never do it again. I slammed against my wooden savior in haste, the lock sliding in with a clunk, immediately answered by a thunderous impact which shook the frame of the door, if not the whole house. Picking myself up where I lay, several feet away from the door, I saw that it had remained intact. Even the glass portion in the middle of the door was unmarred by the titanic force which slammed against it. I began to process what I was seeing beyond the glass. The thing which had been trying to enter my house, and its face pressed up against the transparent barrier. It was a putrid mass of writhing flesh. Hundreds, if not thousands, of tiny tentacles comprised the bulk of the face. It had the eyes of a snake. Its tentacles moved in perfect synchronization to reveal a mouth filled with row after row of way too many teeth. Its teeth were round and dark in color, like stones worn smooth by a river. It spoke again, this time consumed by animal rage. "All locksy-upsy, good, good, good." After its outburst, the creature took to silently leering at me, with only enough of its head exposed to allow its eyes to see me. We stayed like that for a while, the thing leering at me with cold fury in its eyes, me staring back with cold piss in my pants. Eventually the rain subsided and the devil disappeared from my doorstep. I had thought that would be the end of it. 4 months had gone by, and I was beginning to approach the idea of letting go of the horrific experience I'd had. It had been almost an hour since I had last checked the weather, and I was thinking of going for 2. That's when I saw the announcement of a pop-up storm for my area. All of my doors had been staying locked for months, and that day was no different. The thing made its rounds, growing in volume corresponding with its rage. When it had checked all of my doors and found its efforts frustrated, it took to leering at me just as before. It's been 7 years since then. I'm a morning person by necessity. That's when I do all my shopping, gardening, working, and general outside stuff. I check my weather app every 15 minutes. These are precautions I've taken as I don't know how it all works. I don't know what would happen if I were to stay home when a surprise storm rolled in. I don't know what this thing even is. I do know one thing though. After 7 years of maximum effort attempts, the thing now only bothers, half-heartedly, to check the front door. Finding no success, it sighs, and goes to sulk in a corner. After 7 years, it's giving up. My brother died 6 years ago. He was 17. Drunk driver, highway shoulder, over in seconds. I won't get into the grief. That's not what this is about. This is about what started happening 2 weeks ago, after my daughter was born. We bought this old farmhouse last year. It's the kind of place with creaky floors and drafty windows. And honestly, that's part of why we liked it. My wife and I thought it had character. The nursery used to be a study, tucked upstairs in the back of the house. Quiet, removed, perfect, we thought. We set up a baby monitor, a cheap audio one, not a camera. I'm not paranoid, just cautious. I like knowing if she's crying before the full-on banshee screams begin. But a few nights ago, I started hearing something that wasn't crying. It was a voice, male, soft, whispering. The first night I chalked it up to interference. The house is old. Maybe it was picking up a neighbor's radio. But it wasn't static or chatter. It said her name, Ellie, just once, like someone checking if she was asleep. I didn't tell my wife, not yet. What do you even say? Hey, I think our baby monitor is haunted. The next night it spoke again. Same voice. This time a little clearer. It's okay, Ellie. Don't cry. I'm here. I went into the nursery. Nothing. She was asleep, breathing slow, peaceful. The monitor was silent now, like it knew I was listening too hard. On the fourth night, I recorded it. Sat up with the monitor plugged into my laptop and hit record. I didn't even have to wait long. It's okay. I'm watching her. You can sleep. That voice. It was his. My brother. Caleb. I didn't believe it until I heard the way he said my name. The same half laugh in it. The same cadence. I hadn't heard it in years, but when I played it back, it was unmistakable. Jake, it's okay. That's when I told my wife. She listened. She didn't cry, but her hands trembled. She'd only met Caleb once, but she remembered his voice. We tried unplugging the monitor. It didn't matter. We heard it anyway, like the signal had settled into the walls. The monitor still whispers most nights. Sometimes it sings, half-remembered lullabies our mother used to sing to us. Sometimes it just hums. It always sounds calm, gentle. Until last night. Last night I woke to Ellie screaming. Not crying, screaming. We both ran into the nursery. She was in the corner, pressed up against the wall like she was trying to escape the crib. The monitor was on the floor, still on. I picked it up and heard it. Caleb's voice, but different now. Urgent. He's here, Jake. Get her out now. Then silence. Dead air. We're staying at a hotel now. I don't know who he is. I don't want to find out. But tonight, the monitor's light blinked on again, and it's not Caleb's voice anymore. We've changed hotels. Twice. Ellie clings to us at night. She won't sleep unless one of us is touching her. Her fingers find my shirt, or her tiny foot presses against my side. She lies still, breathing softly, but her eyes don't fully close. Lately, she watches the corners of the room with a focus too sharp for a child her age. The baby monitor's gone, smashed and left behind. Whatever came through it didn't stay there. At the previous hotel, it found another way in. The television clicked on by itself, just static at first. Then the sound shaped itself. A voice emerged, slow and deliberate. The words were hushed, but they moved through the room like smoke, and as the voice grew clearer, the bed lamp began to pulse in rhythm, each flicker matching the cadence of the words. She belongs to the house. That was enough. We walked out within minutes. In this new place, we stripped everything down. No electronics, no screens. Nothing left that it can speak through. I stepped out just now to grab food and turn my phone on for a minute, hoping for a call back from someone who might know what this thing is. While I wait, I'm posting this quickly. I'll shut it off again before I drive back. I don't want it finding us through this. Still, something follows. Ellie senses it before we do. She tracks the ceiling, the spaces above door frames. Last night she reached toward the corner where the walls meet. Eyes wide. He's watching, she whispered. Her voice was calm, certain. She's not even a year old. My wife hasn't said a word since we arrived. She cradles Ellie like she's the only real thing left, humming those soft lullabies, the same ones we once played on the monitor, before it turned against us. The melody used to soothe her, now it feels like bait. I've started to wonder how long this thing has known about Ellie, the way she stares into darkness like it's speaking back, the way she hums the lullaby in perfect rhythm when no one else is singing. Then there's the way she screams to know things she shouldn't. How she points to the corner of her room as though she can hear the voice before it speaks. It's like something in her bloodline is calling it to her. My family has never talked about it, but there's always been an odd, unspoken tension around the older relatives. Something's always felt off about their stories. Perhaps they know. Perhaps we all know. We're running out of places to go. The silence between us is heavy. Every door we close feels like a temporary seal against something inevitable. Ellie doesn't cry, she doesn't speak unless it's to point, to gesture, to let us know where it is now. Whatever this force is, it doesn't want us. It wants her, and not as prey. She isn't just being hunted, she's being claimed. The house, whatever that word means to this thing, it's bound to one location. It isn't just a structure, it's following us. Perhaps through her, perhaps for her. The voice didn't say she was in the house. It said she belongs to us, and that's what keeps me awake. She's not just a target, she's the opening, and it's getting closer. We didn't pack, just grabbed Ellie, the diaper bag, and the keys. No checkout, no plan, just distance, just instinct. I drove like the roads would disappear if I slowed down. Back roads, service routes, even dirt paths, anywhere but the places it had already touched. My wife Sam sat silent in the passenger seat, Ellie asleep in her arms, her tiny hand curled tight around the fraying blanket. I didn't know where we were going. Didn't matter until the radio turned on by itself. I hadn't touched it. The display stayed dark, just static, low and sharp like something breathing through the speakers. Then a voice slipped through. Jake. It wasn't a question. It was a warning. Caleb? I said before I could stop myself. The air in the car changed, thinner, like the space around us was stretching. Sam straightened, her grip on Ellie tightening. Even asleep, Ellie stirred and made a soft sound, half whimper, half word, like she recognized the voice. It crackled through the static again, clearer this time. Go back. Farmhouse. Barriers thin there. Can't. He listens. The message broke apart like ice underfoot. The voice vanished. I pulled over, just stopped the car in the middle of nowhere. Sam looked at me, calm but firm. It followed us, she said. Even here, we can't outrun it, but maybe Caleb can help us. I don't want to go back. I know, she said, but I don't think we have a choice. So we went back. We pulled into the gravel driveway just as the sun started rising. The house smirked at our return, like it expected us. There was something on the doorstep, a small wooden horse. Ellie reached for it immediately, whimpering when I didn't give it to her. I knew that toy. We hadn't brought it with us. I knew we hadn't. I cleaned it up weeks ago after finding it in a dusty attic box. It quickly became Ellie's favorite, but it was not on the doorstep when we fled. I would have seen it. Sam's eyes locked on it. That wasn't there before. She wasn't asking. We left Ellie asleep in the car, doors locked. I don't care how weird that sounds. It felt safer than bringing her inside. I want to go up there, Sam said, staring at the ceiling like she could see through it. The attic? I asked. She nodded slowly. Right before we bought this place, I had a dream. It didn't make sense until just now. It felt like nothing back then, just a weird, disjointed image I shrugged off. What was it? I was in an attic. There was this pressure in the air, like being watched, but not by anything human. I didn't think it mattered. Just stress, maybe. But the feeling I had in that dream, this creeping unease, it's exactly what I feel right now. I felt the chill crawl up my spine. You think it was a premonition? She turned to me. I guess you're not the only one this place speaks to. The attic smelled like old wood and colder air. Dust rose with every step. I could hear my own breath. We didn't find anything at first, just the boxes we hadn't touched, insulation flaking from the corners. Then I stepped on something soft, a hollow creak, loose floorboard. Underneath, wrapped in faded newspaper, was a stack of black and white photos, old, curled at the edges. They looked like scenes from some secret ritual. Men and women in carved wooden masks stood in a circle, surrounding a baby laid out on something like an altar. Candles burned around them, symbols scrawled in chalk or ash on the floor. The masks were too detailed, too lifelike. The beams in the ceiling above them matched ours. So did the knot in the floorboards beneath the circle. This wasn't just a ritual. It had happened here, in our attic. Sam found writing on the back, names, dates, my family's names, people from my grandfather's generation, aunts, uncles, cousins. One photo had my grandfather in it, unmistakably younger, but wearing the same smug smile I'd seen in old family albums. He stood in our front yard holding a baby. Behind him, plain as day, was a crooked old mailbox. Our last name on it. This was his house, I said, barely breathing. I think it still is, Sam whispered. Suddenly downstairs, something clicked on. A radio. The old tabletop radio in the dining room was lit up, crackling with static. The same one I'd thought was broken. Then Caleb's voice again. Ellie's in danger. He's still here. I leaned in. Who is he? Our grandfather. He's been waiting, watching. He needs her. A vessel. A second chance. Sam grabbed my arm. Why didn't your dad ever tell you any of this? A pause. Then Caleb's voice, raw and low. I tried to warn him before you bought the house. He told me this was my fault, said it was supposed to be me. Dad brought the horse. That's why he was here. He's in on it. I thought he might be happy to see me, or at least scared his dead kid was haunting him, but he was so matter-of-fact. It was as if he expected me to be here. Caleb's pain was palpable. Death didn't numb the wounds our dad inflicted. Silence. Caleb, what do we do? How do we stop it? The static hissed louder, drowning him out. But just before it cut completely, I heard one more voice layered beneath the noise. Different. Smaller. Tell Carl, it whispered. Frank always wanted a brother, too. The room shook. Not an earthquake. Something deeper. Like the whole house was breathing in. We ran, grabbed Ellie, drove straight to my father's house. The lights were on, but no one answered. I knocked. I called. Nothing. A shadow passed behind the curtains. I grabbed a rock. Sam said nothing. Just held Ellie and ducked behind the car ready. I raised it high. Just as my eyes squinted to shield them from the shards that would follow, the door opened, and there was my dad, smiling, like nothing was wrong. Well, hey, what a surprise, he said. Dad's smile was too wide, a mask barely hiding the tension beneath. We didn't respond, just stepped inside. Sam went in first, clutching Ellie. I followed, eyes locked on him. He stood like he was waiting for a cue, an actor hoping the scene would end before everything falls apart. Sam didn't give him one. Carl, she said, cool and direct. We need to talk. He blinked, then forced a chuckle. You guys look like hell. What's going on? When we moved in, I said, we found a wooden horse in the attic, hand-carved, worn smooth. We gave it to Ellie. Sam's voice was steady, but when we left the house and came back, it was waiting for us, on the front step. We never put it there. Carl didn't blink. Old houses stir things up. Maybe you dropped it, or the wind caught it. These things happen. There's something in that house, I said, and it's not the wind. He gave a slow, sympathetic nod. Your new parents, worn out. Trauma messes with the brain. It sees patterns that aren't there. Sam stepped forward. Caleb warned us. Said Ellie was in danger. The smile vanished. I pressed. He said you blamed him for what's happening to us. Carl looked down, then shook his head slowly. You're remembering grief, not a conversation. Sometimes echoes sound like meaning. He didn't look up. I said quietly, Frank always wanted a brother too. He shattered. Carl dropped into the chair like his knees gave out, face gone pale. His hand reached for the table but missed, hovering uselessly mid-air before falling to his lap. They never said his name, he murmured. Not once, but I found it, scratched on the back of a photo buried deep in a drawer. I was 6. I asked Mom. She was drunk, stared into her glass for a long time before she said. He didn't cry, not even when they came for him, just stared at me like he knew. Then she started sobbing, ugly, choking sobs, and she never spoke his name again. His hands clenched. They cut him out of time itself, not just gone, like he'd never taken a breath. He looked up, voice raw. I didn't know him. I wasn't even born, but I missed him anyway. I needed him. When it got bad with my father, I used to talk to him, pretend he never left. He was the brother who protected me, who understood, who sat next to me in the dark and said, "We'll get out of here." I thought I made him up just to survive. He looked up at us, voice thick. Our father wasn't loud, just exact. He didn't hit us in anger, only when things were misaligned. He'd pull you into that basement and not say a word the whole time. Just wait, and then it started. He looked toward Ellie, then away. I thought I made Frank up, a protector in my head, someone to talk to when no one else listened. Turns out I'd been talking to a ghost. Sam's arms tightened around Ellie. Carl went on. The horse isn't just a toy, it's a marker. It's how they start the ritual. The child bonds with it. That bond creates an opening. Something starts to listen. You put it there, I said, in the attic, before we moved in. Carl nodded slowly. Before the sale closed, I told myself it was tradition, that I wasn't really doing anything, but I was. I knew what it meant. You blamed Caleb, I said. Why? Because when he died, the curse passed to you, Carl said. The pact only targets the youngest living child, a blood-etched tether, passed down like a curse older than memory. When he died, that became you, and that meant Ellie. He trailed off. Sam's voice was quiet but cutting. You blamed your son for dying because you couldn't face the truth that you're just as evil as your father, that you are the one who set this in motion. Carl didn't answer. The silence stretched. Then he exhaled, voice smaller. Staring into the abyss of death changes you, not just the act, the absence. The closer I got to it, the more I thought about the ritual, about what it promised. A way back. I kept telling myself it wasn't real, just superstition, a story passed down. But even as I said it, part of me knew I was lying. I knew what I was doing. I wanted to come back, even if it meant stealing the future. He looked at Ellie again, and this time his face was raw. I held her in the hospital, her fingers curled around mine, and I felt something break in me. Not guilt, not dread, just this aching, fragile hope, like maybe this was it, my second chance. He wiped his eyes. But it's not a second chance, it's theft. It's what my father did to Frank. It's what I almost did to her. The pact allows members of our bloodline to live again, if the price is paid. My father is hungry for his turn. What do we do? I asked. You burn the house, he said. With the horse inside, it has to be on that land. If the horse survives, so does the door. We turned to leave. Carl didn't follow. Just as I reached the door, he spoke again. Jake? I stopped. He didn't rise, just lifted his eyes slowly, like the weight of them hurt. Are you sure? He asked. You can always have more kids. I walked out. Didn't look back. We pulled up to the house and stopped cold. There it was, the toy horse, propped in the front window, facing us like it had been waiting. Sam hugged Ellie tighter. I killed the engine but stayed frozen, staring back at it, a knot twisted deep in my gut. We burn it all, I said. Sam nodded. Her voice was steady. The house, the horse, everything. I popped the trunk. The gas cans were ready, 2 of them still sloshing from the drive. We circled to the trunk, whispering fast. Where to pour the gas, where to light it, how fast we'd have to move. Mid-sentence, Sam stiffened. The horse, she whispered. I turned back to the house. The window was empty, gone. Before I could react, the ground rumbled beneath us, a low, throbbing vibration that climbed up through my shoes and into my bones. The air shifted, heavy and sour, and then a sound rolled out from under the house, a deep, guttural growl. The trees bent under the sudden gust of wind, howling through the yard, clawing at our eyes. Sam shrieked. Ellie was wrenched from her arms by an invisible force. Sam lunged, grabbing at empty air, fingers scraping against the nothing that swallowed our daughter. And then Ellie was gone. 1 second she was there, clinging to Sam's shirt, and the next, nothing but the echo of Sam's scream. We didn't hesitate. We ran. We knew exactly where she was. The attic. The heart of it all. The front door crashed open under my shoulder. Inside, the house was already tearing itself apart. Lights stuttered and sparked. TVs and radios shrieked static loud enough to splinter the windows. The walls pulsed, bowing outward, like the whole frame was breathing. We barreled up the stairs 2 at a time. The attic door yawned open at the top. We rushed in and froze. Literally. My legs locked mid-stride. I could still see, still breathe, but couldn't move. It was like every joint had been bolted in place. Ellie sat in the middle of the floor, tiny and still, clutching the wooden horse to her chest. Around her, a ring of candles sputtered and danced. Symbols had been carved into the floorboards. Circles, jagged lines, things that hurt to look at too long. Then came the masks. 2 floated forward. One pressed itself over Sam's face. The other locked onto mine. They didn't smother, they caged. I could feel the dead weight of them clamping down, pulling me deeper into the ritual. A 3rd mask rose slowly, hovering above the scene. An invisible figure wore it. My grandfather. The entity. It floated toward Ellie, reaching out with arms that weren't there, but somehow still moving. Ellie didn't resist. She didn't cry. She just waited. The candles flared, the symbols pulsed. The entity lifted her, and then the attic door exploded inward, rattling on its hinges. Caleb, or what was left of him. He burst into the room like a dying star, flickering, unstable, but still burning. The entity recoiled. Ellie slipped from its grasp. Caleb caught her. He cradled her against his chest for a moment, and then dropped to his knees, collapsing beside her, trying to wake her. His hands passed through her more than touched her, flickering and unstable. Behind him, the air warped. 7 figures emerged from the darkness. The vessel children. Their eyes burned red with fury. Children who had been offered up like lambs to the slaughter. At their head was Frank. Small, silent, seething. Frank screamed, an awful, ripping sound, and lunged at his father, knocking the mask clean off. The others followed, swarming the entity. They didn't attack just the thing in front of them. They attacked the memory of all in the bloodline that had betrayed them, the families that should have protected them, but instead gave them up. The entity faltered, losing form under the sheer weight of their rage. I saw it then, the flicker of realization. It was losing. It couldn't win against the vessel children. It needed help, and so it spoke. Not to us, to Caleb. "Help me," it rasped. "Help me defeat them. You can have her. You can possess her. I'll wait for the next one." The words slithered through the ritual space, poisoning everything they touched. Caleb froze. I could see it, the terror on his face. He was spent. Whatever force had let him manifest was almost gone. Even if he saved Ellie now, he would fade into nothingness. But if he accepted, he could live. The entity knew exactly where to strike, at the same fear that had ruled Carl's heart. I saw Caleb falter, saw him look at Ellie, at the children, at the door back into existence swinging open before him. He hesitated. Caleb didn't move at first. The spirit's voice threaded through the smoke, soft and slithering. "You don't have to die. Take her hand. Choose life." He almost did. Frank's broken arm, barely visible in the smoke, reached out. His hand wasn't strong. It wasn't even whole. But it closed around Caleb's wrist. A dead boy's grip, trying to hold back the cycle. Caleb's whole body shook. He closed his eyes. He wanted to live. God, he wanted to live. But Ellie whimpered, and somewhere under the ash and static, Caleb remembered what it meant to love someone more than yourself. He tore his hand free, not from Frank, from the fear, from himself. And before the spirit could scream, before the horse could be snatched away, Caleb hurled himself forward. He seized the horse with both hands, and without hesitation, pressed it into the nearest candle. Flame swallowed wax. Caleb burned with it, not in body, but in the thin, brittle thread of soul he had left to give. We didn't have time to think. The horse exploded in Caleb's hands, the wax and paint igniting in a hungry snap, throwing sparks into the trembling attic air. The ritual cracked open like a fault line. The masks dropped, slamming into the floor one after another, hollow and broken. Sam moved first, always faster than fear. She grabbed Ellie and bolted. I stumbled after them, the smoke clawing at my throat, my lungs filling with the stench of burning wood and something fouler, something older. The house screamed not in sound, in motion. The floor writhed underfoot, stretching and tearing, the hallway out, bulging and buckling like the world itself was trying to push it back. Doors along the corridor slammed open, then shut, then open again, a stuttering, furious heartbeat. We ran. I grabbed Sam's hand and pulled her forward, feeling the house tug at my shoulders, trying to rip us loose. One last door, one last breath. I threw my weight into it, slamming it open just as it tried to slam closed, dragging Sam and Ellie through behind me. Outside, cold air, real stars, earth that didn't undulate. The gas cans sat by the car where we'd left them, as if the house hadn't noticed them, hadn't cared. Hands numb, I tore one open, sloshing gasoline across the porch, the steps, the broken threshold. Sam stood behind me, clutching Ellie against her chest, her face a blank mask of survival. I struck a match. The fire leapt up greedily, roaring along the wood, swallowing the doorway and the walls, gnawing into the bones of the house. The house didn't scream aloud. It fought. The flames bucked and twisted, trying to writhe free, to hurl themselves off the walls, to undo what had been done. But Caleb was already gone. The ritual was already broken, the blood debt uncollected. The house burned. No faces in the windows, no whispering in the eaves, just the smell of ash and grief and old, bitter promises burning out at last. We stood in the dirt and watched it die. It's been 3 years. Different state, different house, different ghosts. We never spoke to Carl again. I don't know if he's alive. I don't much care. Ellie is 4 now. She's fierce, bright, smarter than either of us knows how to handle. Sometimes when she's excited, she talks with Caleb's grin, half laughing, half challenging, like the world isn't moving fast enough for her. Sam says it's just family resemblance. I want to believe that. Most days I do. Last night, though, I woke up around 3 a.m. No reason, just a pressure in my chest. On my way to the kitchen, I passed Ellie's door and froze. She was awake, sitting cross-legged on her bed, whispering into the dark. I leaned closer. He's sleeping, just like before. The words floated out. Calm. Too calm. I knocked lightly. Ellie, what are you up doing? She turned toward me, face shadowed, smiling. Nothing, Daddy, she said sweetly. Then in a voice too steady, too old. You shouldn't be eavesdropping. It wasn't just what she said, it was how she said it. Like someone else was watching me through her eyes. My heart jammed into my throat. And then she laughed, bright, messy, normal, and flopped backward into her blankets, giggling. Only the laugh, the crack in the middle of it, the way it bent, the way it splintered just wrong. For one breathless moment, it sounded exactly like Caleb. I stood there for a long time, long after she fell asleep, long after the house settled into silence, just counting my own breaths, just making sure they were still mine. Hey everyone, and welcome to another 2 hours of scary stories. I hope you all enjoy them. Not too long ago, we tested out a video where we didn't have any mid-roll ads. You seemed to like that one a lot, so I thought we would go ahead and do it again. There were a ton of comments offering up advice. There was one in particular that stuck out to me, and I just wanted to propose it to all of you. The comment basically said, you know, since I have these intros on every single video, why not just place one ad right after the intro and then you have 2 hours of uninterrupted stories. No ads, nothing to wake you up, just narration for 2 hours. Plenty of time to get comfortable. You don't have to skip through any ads. Nothing. I thought it was a great middle ground. That way I'm still earning something off of these videos and it'll be a far better listening experience for all of you. I think it makes the most sense. Of course, I do want all of your feedback on this. It is your feedback that led me to here. It is your feedback that will influence how we move forward, as it's always been. If you do enjoy this video, please be sure to drop a like rating, subscribing, commenting, sharing it around. All of that is very much appreciated as well. Let's see if we can reach 800 likes on this one. I know that's a pretty high goal, but the last one did hit that, so I think we could do it. Sit back, do whatever it is that you do to relax. Enjoy these 2 hours of uninterrupted scary stories right after the ad break. And as always, I hope you all have a great night. I was broke as shit. Flatlined financially, emotionally, existentially. Whether by poor choices in my youth or plain old shit luck. Life spat me out straight from high school and onto the streets. Drugs followed, rehab, the relapse, I drifted from couches to shelters to squatting in abandoned homes. Steady income? Never heard of it. So when I saw the email, I almost deleted it without reading. I figured it was just another rejection for one of my poorly written job applications until the header caught my attention. Dinner with me for $50,000. I'm not exactly attractive. Even before addiction wrecked the few good features I had, I didn't have much going for me. My eyes had sunk into my skull like they wanted to disappear. My skin had forgotten what hydration felt like. So this email? Ridiculous. I had no looks, no resume, no justification for being chosen. But I'd just left a shelter, and 50 grand was a dream bigger than anything I'd ever held. So I read on. It was from a domain I'd never seen before. Shepard K at SNKCompunctionFirm.com. The message read, "Dear recipient, I trust this message finds you well. I invite you to join me for dinner at..." This is not a romantic offer. You will be compensated handsomely for your time, provided you adhere to the following terms. Remain for the full meal until I pay the bill and escort you out. Do not pay for anything yourself. Wear formal attire. If you don't own a suit, one will be provided at the entrance. It will fit. Any breach will void all compensation. To accept, reply. A time and date will be sent. To decline, disregard this message. Did it seem insane? Absolutely. But desperation makes fool of us all. The kind of fool that doesn't ask for explanation. Just a fork and a seat. So I replied, "Hello, Shepard. Thank you for your generous offer. I accept your terms and will be there. May I ask a few questions about this proposition? Again, thank you." I didn't expect a response. Maybe a phishing scam, maybe nothing, but seconds later a reply came. Monday at 6 p.m. at... Questions may be asked at dinner. Thank you for your cooperation. More cryptic BS. That's when I gained the smallest amount of common sense and decided to look into whoever this guy was. This was clearly his business email, so I googled the domain, S&K Compunction Firm. I was expecting some big group of lawyers off the name alone, but nope. No law firm. Just a single office tucked in a strip mall. No products, no services. Just a photo of the branch manager, despite the fact that the office barely looked big enough for 2 people, and the title implied multiple locations, yet I couldn't even find a second one. What did they do? Solutions? No specifics, just that one word. I thought about backing out, probably should've, but when you've got nothing left, hesitance starts looking like a luxury. I had nothing to lose, so I took the chance. Between drug-filled stupors and getting my butt kicked once or twice, Monday crept up on me like bruises do. Slow, unseen, then sudden. I didn't have anything formal, so I threw on the only white button-up shirt I owned and some gray slacks. Both had stains I couldn't explain, and no iron had graced their surfaces in years. Still, they were the fanciest clothes I had. None of it mattered. The second I hobbled into the restaurant, the greeter, if you could even call them that, handed me a dry clean suit without a word and pointed to the bathrooms. I took the hint. The suit seemed expensive, real Men's Warehouse type stuff. It fit perfectly, just like the email said. Too perfectly, actually. The cuffs landed exactly at my wrist bone. The collar rested like it knew my neck's shape already. I didn't have the time or money to question it. I walked back out. The place had a strange charm. Soft lighting spilled across tablecloths and smooth pools of warmth. Ornate picture frames lined the walls, filled with abstract paintings that felt a bit too familiar. Wood trim hugged every surface. big, glittery curtains hung heavy like a wedding reception. It smelled like artificial plants and faded fabric. Soft jazz floated through the air and brushed against my ears. As I scanned the room, I realized something unsettling. When I first walked in, there were at least 4 tables of people laughing and enjoying themselves. It had been noisy and lively, but now, silent, empty, like a bell had rung that only I hadn't heard. Just a few bartenders, the mute greeter, the one bald man in a suit eerily similar to mine. I already knew who he was. His photo was the only thing of note I'd found when looking up the domain. The branch manager. I approached his table and, before I could ask if he was expecting me, he gestured to the chair across from him. He was an older man, maybe 50, with sad, droopy eyes. His nose was so thin and pointy it looked like a shark's fin. He seemed to have no nostrils at all. His jowls fluttered slightly as he spoke in a soft, low tone. "Thank you for coming, young man. It's good to finally see you," he said, extending an arm for a handshake. I tried my best to sound steady and firm, despite my rising anxiety. "Thank you, sir." The conversation that followed was surprisingly pleasant. The food was better than almost anything I had ever had, decadent and strangely nostalgic, as if it had been made just for me. He asked about my childhood, my current working conditions, and my family life. Most of these memories weren't pleasant, but it felt good to have someone simply listen. I reached a point where I started letting my guard down. He never interrupted, never judged, just watched. Then he got serious. He grabbed my wrist just as I lifted my fork. His grip was ice cold but steady, and his tone dropped. "What is something you wish you had never done?" "What?" I was shocked by his sudden seriousness. He didn't respond. He just stared, still and waiting. I swallowed. "I stole from my mom when she was dying. I was supposed to take care of her and protect her, but I spent her money on the stuff she told me to quit." A waitress appeared silently, depositing a small porcelain bowl before me. Inside sat a single seared scallop resting on a streak of bright red pepper collies, its color staining the white plate like the shame I carried. The scallop's tender flesh gave way to a flash of heat, a reminder that some wounds never fully heal. A whisper of lemon zest lifted the flavors. He nodded, no judgment in his eyes, only something quietly accepting, then stood and excused himself to the restroom. As he left, I took a breath and tried to shake off the moment. Then I noticed it. The chandelier above us had one more bulb, just one. The light it cast bent slightly at the edges, stretching the shadows under our plates. I blinked, rubbed my eyes. Back to normal. Mostly. The jazz had slowed by a fraction. Notes now lingered a second longer than they should. He returned looking subtly altered. His right side appeared younger and tighter. The left side remained unchanged. A crease near his mouth had vanished, and his smile felt less weighted. He asked again gently, "What's the kindest thing you've ever done?" I told him about a homeless kid I had let sleep in my car on a freezing night. I didn't know his name and didn't want anything from him. I just locked the doors and stayed up until morning in case someone tried anything. While his gaze lingered, another course arrived. A hollowed apple cradled a warm, butternut squash soup, its sweetness tempered by sage oil. The apple's crisp rim framed the velvety broth, echoing the way I had sheltered that boy from the cold. Each spoonful felt like a soft promise of safety in a world so devoid of it. This time, as he listened, something in his face responded. His left eye seemed brighter, and the left side softened. He looked younger somehow. Maybe the light was playing tricks, or maybe the room had grown darker. He asked another question. What's the worst lie you've ever told? I hesitated. I had promised myself I would never recall this memory, yet I felt compelled to tell the old man. When someone close to me overdosed, I could have saved them. I saw them but was frozen in fear, thinking I could be just like them. When the police came, I told them he was already gone when I got there. He nodded again. Still no judgment, just listening. I'm not sure how, but as I spoke, a new course appeared. A translucent, steamed dumpling sat alone, its skin almost too delicate to touch. The moment I pierced it, a smoky chili broth gushed out, scorching my tongue with the sting of my lies. The gentle wrapper dissolved into nothing, leaving only the burn of a secret I thought I'd buried permanently. Then he stood and walked away, slower this time. His chair creaked slightly as he rose, and the floor beneath it curved outward in a way that made no physical sense. As I waited, I saw the wallpaper behind the bar begin to bubble faintly, like heat was pressing against it from inside. The curtains seemed heavier. The picture frames on the wall had begun to tilt, each at a different angle. Not much, but enough to notice. Enough to make you wonder. The waitstaff didn't change plates. The glasses refilled themselves, and I started noticing something impossible. Everyone in the room had his face. Not exactly, but similar. Like a family of clones degraded with each repetition. The bartender blinked with one bulging eye, and the hostess's smile sagged like melting wax. When he came back, the distortion had grown wider. His jaw was uneven, one side shriveled, the other taut as barbed wire. The contrast on his face was more than physical now. It radiated something deeper, like halves of a personality that couldn't agree. He sat, scanning me as if measuring the weights behind my silence. I wasn't sure if he was evaluating my soul or just admiring the way panic settled into the corners of my posture. His voice arrived softly, almost reverent. What memory do you miss the most? It took me a moment, not because I didn't know, but because I was afraid to admit how fragile the truth had become. I used to swim in Lake Michigan every summer, I said slowly, with friends. We'd throw ourselves off docks and scream about sea monsters and cold sandwiches. It was stupid, but I felt safe, like I didn't owe anything to anyone. Shepard's good eye glistened. A tear formed and trailed down the brighter side of his face. It lingered at his chin and disappeared into the folds. The darker side remained unflinching, its socket almost hollow now. I stared at him, unsure whether to thank him or run. He didn't speak. He just stood, his movements slower this time, calculated, weighty. The chair creaked like it hated being left alone. The bathroom break felt longer. The silence thickened, and the music was barely audible. The overhead lights dimmed again, and this time they pulsed faintly. One of the picture frames fell sideways. The bartender wiped the same spot over and over, face devoid of emotion, eye bulging slightly. The wallpaper near the entrance was peeling, tiny tendrils reaching outward like roots. A fly circled the wine glass beside my plate but never landed, looping endlessly. I felt my chest tighten. Shepard returned. This time he didn't sit. He loomed. His face was wrong. The symmetry had given up. One eye bulged fully, twitching in quick spasms. The other was practically sunken. His mouth hung slightly open, but no breath escaped. He said nothing for several seconds. Just watched me. Then finally, "Would you like dessert?" I stood almost instinctively. "I think I need the bathroom," I said. He nodded slowly. "Take your time." The restroom was too quiet, the mirror too clean. I leaned forward expecting to see my own ruin reflected, but instead behind me in the mirror, Shepard waited. Not in the room, but in the reflection. His body was stretched taller than before, suit shimmering like the surface of a pond. He smiled, both eyes twitching violently. I didn't scream or move. I just stepped back out, numb. The dining room was nearly gone. The walls had peeled upward toward the ceiling. Tables melted into spiraled masses of dark wood and cloth. The floor rippled like liquid stone. The curtains had vanished entirely, leaving a strange static haze where windows had once been. Shepard stood at the center, calm. "You've done well, young man," he said. "Repentance is never easy. The hardest part is accepting that you are no longer part of the world you knew." My knees threatened to give out. I wanted to argue, to scream, to run, but nothing in my body responded the way it used to. Everything had slowed except him. "What do you mean?" I managed to ask. He smiled gently like a father comforting a child who had just asked the final fated question. "This meal," he said, "is not payment. It's passage." "No," I whispered. "I walked here. I remember the shelter, the email." "You remember the drug," he said, cutting gently across my denial. "And the stall in the diner. You remember how cold the tile was. You remember how long it took for someone to find you." I shook my head as if it might rattle the truth loose, but it didn't help. My legs wouldn't move. "All we offer," he continued, "is a moment, one last conversation, one last taste, one last confession." The last of the room flaked away like ash in the wind. The table in front of us dissolved into nothing. Steam hissed upward from cracks in the floor that hadn't been there seconds before. Shepard extended his hand again. The suit he wore shimmered strangely, colors shifting like moonlight on ocean currents. Patterns swirled across the threads. Faces, maybe, or shadows. I couldn't be sure. "You did well," he said quietly. "You were honest. That's all we ask." I felt tears on my cheek, though I didn't know how they got there. "What happens now?" Shepard looked over his shoulder. Behind him, the restaurant was finally gone. In its place, a hallway of shifting doors. Some open, some pulsing with warm light. Others dimmed and sealed. "Now," he said, "you choose." You've seen my books. No, I'm not going to tell you which books, nor who I am, so don't ask. I assure you, though, if you're a big reader, or even a sort of reader, then you've probably read or at least heard of some of my stuff. My stuff in the hypothetical sense of the phrase. As the title says, I was never actually the one who wrote my books. Again, don't ask me who really did. Not because of privacy or theft laws or anything. I just don't know. I used to be a plumber of all things. Not the most glamorous of professions, but it paid pretty well. Seeing how almost nobody wanted to do it. My dad trained me right out of high school, and pretty soon I'd saved enough to move to my own apartment. A few years later, I decided I may as well sell my soul and get locked into a mortgage, because at least then the rent money wouldn't be going to waste. The idea was to get a few roommates and have them pay for my house instead. But I'm a private person. It's not that I liked living alone per se, but I never had many friends growing up. I didn't know who to invite to the other rooms, and the idea of strangers moving in with me. I read. That's what you do when you're 26 and you don't have friends. You read books and pretend you do have friends. And when you finish one book and realize you're still alone, you pick up the next one. It's a bit like alcohol. You have to drink another glass in the morning to recover from the damage of the glass from the night before. Except, nobody ever applauds you for getting drunk as a hobby the way they do for reading. If that all sounds like a terribly depressed way to view life, well, It's probably because I was, however you want to say it. I was in what you might call a drought period, one of those times when you read something exceptional the month before and now you can't find anything that compares to it. I tried a few series, but nothing piqued my interest, and I'd all but given up. Resorted to watching Friends for the 30th time instead. That's when I found the basement. Basement is a strong word. Crawl space is more accurate. I was pulling up the carpeting in one of the guest rooms during some renovations, and there it was. The flat door with a brass handle on the closet floor. Like any new homeowner, I opened it and hopped down. Rot and mildew and something metallic, all bundled into one scent. Maybe a cat had died here. It was 4, possibly 4.5 feet tall. I had to stoop all the way over to shuffle forwards. I was barely 10 steps in when it appeared on the ground. A stack of papers. They weren't in any sort of an envelope, no rubber band holding them together, or even a staple. About 20 sheets were stacked one on top of another, perfectly white as if they'd just come from the printer, even though nobody had been down there for years judging from the age of the carpet. The passage ended a little after that, so I grabbed the papers, climbed out, and closed the trap door. It wasn't until that night, when I'd finished tearing out the carpet and the emptiness of the house was getting to me, that I actually stopped to read the papers. The story on them. I was enthralled. I didn't move until I'd finished them, but each word, each sentence gripped me and dragged me in. It was real. That's what it felt like. The story on the paper was reality, and my life was the fake thing made of ink. If only I could keep reading, I could keep living, and... I turned the last page. The story stopped mid-sentence. I flipped through the pages over and over, hoping somehow I'd missed a page, that there was more. I reread the entire thing. Then again, then again. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning I called in sick. I paced the house. I tried watching TV. I tried reading, but nothing worked. I was obsessed. I had to finish the story, but the ending didn't even exist. After 2 days of this, I'd had enough. I'll bury it, I thought. I'll bury it, and my mind will accept it's over. Instead of digging a hole, though, I went back to the crawl space. I would leave it where I found it, and try to forget the story. When I went back down, a fresh stack of pages awaited me. That's how it started. New pages wouldn't appear until the old ones were read. But that was no problem. I read them with a savage hunger, chapter after chapter. I called in sick to work again, but when my dad tried to come visit, I told him not to, that he'd only get sick. I read for hours and hours, taking trips back down to the crawl space where new pages would await me each time, until finally it was finished. The end. I popped down one more time, just to see if there was some sort of an epilogue, but the crawl space was empty. The story was over. For weeks I searched online for clues about who had written the story. Nothing came up. I reached out to the past owner of the house. "There's a crawl space?" they asked me. We never knew. I sat on the books for weeks and weeks, obsessed but resolved to give it up, to put it past me. Eventually I reached out to some literary agents. One more sip of alcohol to cure the hangover. From what I hear, it takes months and months of waiting to hear back after you reach out to agents. The ones I reached out to took days. Each of them requested to read the whole book, and each one of them offered me contracts within the weeks. "You're the best writer I've ever signed," said the agent I went with. I didn't correct her. Publishing went much the same. It should have taken months. Within weeks I had signed with a major publishing house. The editing process that should have taken months took days. "I can't imagine changing a word of this," my editor told me. "You're an amazing writer." I said nothing. Most authors face mediocre success at best. The ones you hear about, those are the exceptions. For every career author, there's 100 authors that never make back their advance. That should have been my expectation, but even then I knew. I knew something was different about this book. Not just the way I'd found it, but the things it did to me. To others. It was enthralling in the way a blind kitten crawling towards a cliff is enthralling. Once you glance at it, you can't look away. Sure enough, it was a bestseller. It won awards. I earned back my advance in weeks. They invited me to talk shows and conventions, but I declined them all. Don't get used to this, I told myself. It was one book. It wasn't even yours. The inflow of money was great. Fantastic, really, but I didn't quit my regular job. It wasn't like I'd be writing another book and eventually everybody would calm down. They'd forget about my book and I'd be forgotten. The friends would stop calling. Things would go back to normal. And then one night when I couldn't sleep, after I'd spent hours staring up at the ceiling of my lonely bedroom, I went back down. Some deep, slumbering part of me had already known they'd be there. The new pages. That was how it had worked the first time after all. I had to read the pages for new ones to appear. It made sense. I would have to publish the last book for a new one to appear. I read the new chapters. I visited the crawl space 10 more times that night until I'd finished the whole thing. The next day I quit my job, and so began my new life. I timed it purposefully. Every 6 to 8 months I would submit my new manuscript. Every 6 months I would take a trip back down to the cellar. Each book release shot me back up to the top of the bestseller list. Money rolled in steadily, more than I knew what to do with. It wasn't like I was going to buy a new house, no. That much was obvious. I would live where I did until I died because I needed to. For my career, I told myself, I have to stay here for my career. Even then, though, I think I knew. I wasn't staying there to support my lifestyle. It was a nice perk. Being rich certainly had its benefits, but it was about the books. It was always about the books. I reread them constantly. What else was there to do? The hours most writers take to write was free time for me. Might as well read, reread, consume. At first, I would see how long I could go without picking one of my books. 1 day, 2, 3. That was the limit, I discovered. By day 3, my palms would get sweaty and my stomach would start cramping. Eventually, I stopped resisting. Reading was all I did with my time. I quit all other books. I did try to read them, but none of them satisfied me. They were flat, like the 2D version of the 3D stories that Crawlspace gave me. They were the lotus flowers from the Greek myths. Once you try one, regular food could never taste the same. At least it's just me, I told myself, my one small comfort. I could fade away, give in, and that was all right. Nobody else would be harmed. Besides my dad, nobody cared about me. I wasn't hurting anybody. I convinced myself that was the truth. I really believed the books were just affecting me, until my first book signing. I'm not entirely sure what convinced me to do it. Maybe it was my agent or publisher who'd both pestered me to do one for years. Partially, it was due to one of the rare recovery periods where I actively trying to stop reading. Always to little success. But I did one. My very first book signing. The bookstore filled up. Literally. They were turning people away. Hundreds showed up to meet me. The false author of these best-selling books. They were so excited to meet me. I saw the anticipation as I did a reading. I was almost looking forward to the book signing, despite the hours-long line. "Yours are my favorite books," one woman told me. "These are what got me into reading," said another. "They're the only thing I read now." "Glad to hear it," I said, chuckling as I signed. I looked up. The man wasn't smiling. "I'm not," he said. He walked away. I started noticing it then. The jittery look in the eyes. The way people desperately clutched their copies of my books. Not in a loving way, Not like a child clinging to a teddy bear, more like victims of the Titanic hanging from the rails as it tipped. "What else do you read?" I asked a teenager and her father. The teenager shook her head. "Nothing. Why would I?" To another fan holding a battered copy, I asked, "How many times have you read it?" She laughed nervously. I don't know. I can't remember." She burst into tears. "I can't stop. Why can't I stop?" Almost nobody reacted as she tore out of the bookstore sobbing. It was in all of them, that frantic obsession in me, their simultaneous loathing and love for the books. Some of them outright scowled at me, like they hadn't wanted to come, but hadn't been able to resist. It was the very last woman in line who scared me the most. She didn't even look up at me. She stared down at the book in her hands, the very first one I'd ever published. She never responded to my questions. She never put it down. I recognized the cover. It was the first edition of my first book, which meant she'd been one of the earliest people ever to pick me up. Her eyes were bloodshot. Her teeth were falling out like she couldn't spare the time to brush them, and her skin was a sickly yellow. I never did another book signing. It gets worse as time goes on. That's what I've realized. The longer you read them, the more dependent you are on them. I've tried to stop publishing. Of course I have. 12 times. Look at what my books are doing to people. Look at what they'll continue to do. Even if I could stop, though, it wouldn't matter. Once you've tasted the lotus petal, you can never go back. No one I've talked to has been able to quit once they've read something from the crawl space. All those people at the book signing, all my thousands and thousands of readers, it's too late for them, the way it's too late for me. My hair falls off in clumps now. My skin is yellow and my teeth, nearly all of them are gone. Even so, I continue. Year after year climbing down through that trap door, sending off my manuscripts to the publisher. I can't stop. I don't want to anymore. It's easier to just give in. Sip by sip by sip. It's almost a relief to grab the pages the crawl space gives me and pump them out into the world. That's the only way I get more of them, and it's not like I can write my own stories. This entire time I've never written a word myself. Not one. Not even these ones. I don't get it. I swirled my straw around in my iced pecan latte. Not the manliest drink choice, but Amaya had turned me on to them, and now I couldn't go back to whatever I had ordered before. I would never be the same. Yeah, Josh, Amaya chimed in, leaning back in her chair almost precariously, the front legs tilting off the ground. Me neither. It looks like Grinder. I snorted. It does kind of look like Grinder. How would you even know that, Cooper? I mean, I've seen what Grinder looks like. Have you never seen what Grinder looks like? My head whipped between them, searching for understanding in Josh's face and sympathy in Amaya's. I only found laughter. I crossed my arms and sulked. Guys, I know it's weird, Josh finally continued. He pinched his baseball cap by the bill and spun it around so it was backwards, leaning forward and holding out his phone for us to look at. Doing that was almost a nervous tic for him. It had to be 50 times a day that he rotated his hat like that when he was wearing one, just to rotate it back again. Sometimes I joked that he was going to make his hair curly like that. I don't even know who made this. Jackson said they found it on the dark web or something. Your cousin Jackson? You're not really falling for that, are you? Amaya smirked at him, leaning on her elbows and chewing on her straw. He's definitely messing with you. He just glared at her and kept going. Some people think it's like promotion for a movie or something. Some people think the people on here are dead. Dead? Like ghosts or something? He shrugged loosely, his face blank. Don't know. There's just a lot of theories. They could also just be bots or something. So what's the point of using this? I chimed in, slurping loudly as the last hints of liquid in my cup. I got a couple dirty looks from some old ladies at the table next to us, and I smiled apologetically. You were just making it sound sketchy. Josh grinned, coming alive. He rotated his hat again and leaned in closer, like he was going to tell us a juicy secret. Amaya and I glanced at each other. People are finding love, apparently, he whisper-yelled. Like, on the app? With the ghosts/bots? He shook his head. No, not exactly. I think the point of the app is that it figures out your type or something, and then you just find someone exactly like that. They're drawn to you or something. So now this is some tarot card universe soulmate BS. Amaya always joked like this, but I could tell she was getting legitimately a little frustrated with him. I didn't blame her. Her emotions had been all over the place lately, since she and Sean broke up. I felt guilty for feeling a little relieved they finally ended it, considering it meant she had more time to hang out with us, because I knew she was having a horrible time with it. They had been together for 2 years. Things like that were a big deal. I, on the other hand, hadn't had a girlfriend in years. I hadn't even been on a date in longer than I wanted to admit, and even if I could get a date, I didn't think I'd know what to do with the opportunity. I thought college would be a constant party where I was meeting girls left and right, but so far I had been sorely mistaken. I couldn't lie. What Josh was saying sounded appealing in theory, if it was real that time, which it wasn't. Listen, Josh said, offering her a crooked smile. I know it sounds insane. It definitely is insane. I haven't even gotten to the weirdest part yet. What's the weirdest part then, Josh? She brushed some dark brown curls away from her eyes, scowling at her own iced latte. Spit it out. Check this out. He held out his phone again, and Amaya and I both leaned in to look. It was the same screen he'd showed us before. The one that looked a little bit like Grindr, with a black background, and the only thing on the page were a list of open chats. He tapped on a little question mark in the top right corner, and that was when the terms and conditions popped up. Terms and conditions. 1. If someone messages you that you would like to speak with, you must reply within 10 minutes of receiving the message. 2. If you do not wish to speak with someone, you must repeat this phrase word for word. Thank you for your interest, but I am not open at this time. I wish you good luck with finding what you want. 3. If you wish to stop speaking to someone, repeat the phrase above. 4. If someone continues messaging you after you have sent the phrase above, get to high ground. Lock all doors and windows, and contact customer support immediately. Delete the app. Do not re-download the app. 5. Do not message anyone between 12 a.m. and 6 a.m. 6. Always say goodnight before you go to sleep. 7. Always say good morning as soon as you wake up. 8. Always be polite. 9. Do not send more than one message at a time. 10. Do not offer them anything to eat. 11. Do not agree to meet up with anyone on the app. Do not tell them where you are, even if they say that they already know. Do not invite them into your home. 12. If they are near your home, get to high ground, lock all doors and windows, and contact customer support immediately. Delete the app. Do not re-download the app. 13. Do not let them trick you. They will try. 14. We are not responsible for any negative consequences of using the app. Amaya and I just stared at the page for a long time, both of our eyes skimming over the words once, twice, 3 times. Finally, Amaya leaned back, rubbing at her face with the palms of her hands. This has to be a joke. Josh shrugged, setting his phone down. It's crazy, I know. Do you agree to all of that? I asked him. I felt a little uneasy, my stomach churning. The pecan latte wasn't sitting well anymore. Have you been using this? He shrugged again, now looking a little bit embarrassed. Listen, I know it sounds insane, but it's just for fun. I just want to see if it's real. Jackson met this girl like a week after using the app for the first time, and I met her. And she's really normal and nice. I find that hard to believe. Maya's face was red, and she kept nervously tucking her hair behind her ears. Look, if you're messing with me, like, if you're both in on this is a really crappy prank to pull on me right now. No. Both Josh and I cried out at the same time, getting a couple more weird looks. No, Amaya, it's not a prank. Josh finished. I promise. It's just something weird I found, and I wanted to tell you guys about it. Whatever, she huffed, pushing to her feet and slinging her bag over her shoulder. Just whatever. I don't feel good. I'll talk to you guys later. Amaya... I trailed off as she slammed her half-empty coffee cup into the trash, and briskly strode toward the door. Josh and I shared a look. Dude, I swear I wasn't trying to mess with her. He said after a while, searching my face to gauge my belief in him. I nodded, wiping my sweaty palms off on my jeans. I know, it's okay, she just isn't doing well right now. I hesitated for a long moment, chewing on my bottom lip. Before I spoke again, Jackson really met someone? I downloaded the app that night. I wasn't proud of it, but my curiosity became stronger than my uneasiness. And, as embarrassing as it was to admit, I was getting desperate. I just wanted someone. I wanted to meet someone nice and pretty that I could go to places with, and I wasn't having luck anywhere else. I considered it a win-win. If this app was just some BS prank, then we could get a good laugh out of it. And if it wasn't, that meant it was real. Josh had sent the link to our group chat with Amaya, and she immediately responded by reacting to the message with a thumbs down. That meant that, even if she was still a little peeved, at the very least, she wasn't upset anymore. It was a good sign. I pressed on the link and then agreed to download, crossing my fingers and praying for no horrible virus. The app really was incredibly bare bones. Nothing but a message screen, which was empty so far in my case. There wasn't anything else to look at, other than the terms and conditions, which I read again. No one to swipe on, no bios to read, nothing. I was brushing my teeth when I got my first message. My phone buzzed and I nearly choked on my toothpaste when I read the notification. Noelle. Hello, handsome. Smiley face. For some reason, the smiley emoticon unnerved me. I checked the time. 11:30 p.m., so I was fine on that rule. I pressed on the message and her profile popped up. There was no bio, just a name and a picture to look at. I studied it closely, my eyebrows cinching together. The picture was of a girl looking definitely somewhere close to my age. She had shoulder-length curly dark hair and dark skin, and she was posing in a yellow field wearing a flowery dress. It looked normal to me at first, but the closer I looked, the more off it felt. Her smile looked stiff, almost like it was painted on, and something about her eyes wasn't quite right. Her pupils looked strange, but I couldn't put my finger on exactly how. Something about that picture filled me with a sense of dread that I couldn't fully place either. I panicked, and I checked the terms and conditions again before composing my message, before the 10 minutes could pass, just in case. Cooper. Thank you for your interest, but I am not open at this time. I wish you luck in finding what you want. I waited. 3 little typing bubbles popped up, and then they disappeared. 5 minutes passed, then 10. I sighed in relief and shut my phone off. I woke up to 2 more messages from other women. One was named Alyssa, and one was named Jody. My heart began to race. They had messaged during the night, so it had been 10 minutes before I replied, right? The words scrolled across the backs of my eyes like subtitles. You must reply within 10 minutes of receiving the message. Had I broken that rule? But then again, I wasn't supposed to message back at night, so surely it didn't count. I typed my responses, not bothering to look too closely at their profiles yet, not wanting to psych myself out. Alyssa. Hi. Cooper. Hi, good morning. Jody. Hello, how are you today? Cooper. Hello, good morning. I'm doing well. How are you? I tried to match their energy. I made sure to be polite, and I also made sure to say good morning. I couldn't get my heart rate to slow down while I got ready to work, and I couldn't get over the dread I had felt when I thought I might have broken the rule. I knew it probably wasn't real, but what if it was? What would happen to me if I didn't follow the terms and conditions? At work, I got in trouble more than once for checking my phone between waiting tables. I couldn't help it. Even if it was a stupid joke, I didn't want to find out. I only got one message from someone new, someone named Sunny, and I caught it after 8 minutes had already passed since it was sent. I was anxious and restless all day, all the way until it was nearly midnight, when I could finally relax a little. The other girls had messaged me a couple of times throughout the day, and I had replied politely, asking them questions about things they liked to do and places they liked to go. Everything really seemed fairly average, besides the very slight hint of stiffness in the way they talked, and the strange qualities about all of their profile pictures. Maybe they really were just well-trained bots. The thought made me feel a little better. They probably weren't even real. The only thing out of the ordinary was one message from Alyssa. Alyssa, would you want to take me out to dinner some night this week? Get something to eat? Of course, in normal circumstances, this wouldn't have been a strange thing to say at all, but I remembered at the last second, do not offer them anything to eat. I told her I was extra busy that week, and I just wanted to get to know her first. She had typed for a long time before responding with, okay. Before it could get to midnight, I sent my goodnights, and let out a long, shaky breath. I called Josh. Hey man, how's it going? He sounded out of breath. He must have been on his nightly run. I had tried telling him it was crazy to go on runs in the middle of the night, and so had Amaya, but he didn't listen. He was a white, straight, mostly muscular man. He had nothing to be scared of. He was invincible. This app is stressful, dude. I lay back in my bed, closing my eyes. It's taking a lot out of me. I heard Josh laugh on the other end, slightly choppy and still breathless. Don't take it too seriously. Like I was saying, it could definitely just be some movie promotion or something. Also, you get used to it. I have. Yeah. I trailed off. Have you talked to Amaya? A little. Why? I'm just worried about her. She's been so out of it lately. Yeah. We should do something for her, man. Like, plan something. I couldn't help but smile. The three of us had been inseparable since freshman orientation. When we had been put in a group, I had thought it wouldn't last, that it would just be a case of freshman friend group. But it had. I felt lucky to have found both of them in such a big school in such a big area. Yeah, we should. Let's hang out tomorrow. Sure thing. I went to bed that night feeling a little bit better, and a little less anxious. I woke up to tons of messages. A couple of new ones, but mostly pages of ones from the girls I had already spoken to. These are a bunch of messages from Alyssa. Cooper, don't go to bed. Talk to me, Cooper. I miss you. Can I come over? I'm moving soon. Could you help me move? You could make me dinner. Cooper, wake up. I'm all alone, and I'm cold. It's so cold. I shivered. I didn't even bother reading through the other messages, just responded with a good morning and apologized for not responding the night before. I wasn't sure this app was for me. The next few days went by without much of a hitch. The girls on the app were creepy, but they seemed harmless, and I was careful to follow all of the rules. I kept telling myself that even if these girls freaked me out, they weren't even the ones I would end up with. If this app worked, I would meet someone who was perfect for me very, very soon, and then I could delete it and forget about it forever. I would give it another week or so, then I was going to give up. That was until Josh came into my job on a Wednesday. I saw him waiting outside the break room, his face pointed down, wringing his hands anxiously. The first thing I noticed was that he had no hat on. The second thing was that he was crying. "What's wrong?" I asked him, frowning and looking him over. "Is everything okay, dude?" He shook his head, finally looking up and meeting my eyes. I saw horror in them, and some other emotion that I hadn't seen from him maybe ever. "Amaya is missing. Cooper, she's gone." One thought struck me all at once. The first stupid thought I had. Did she download it too? Everything after that felt like a huge gray blur. My manager gave me the day off work, and I went with Josh, following him to the police station. I sat in their gray room. I answered their questions. I tried not to cry when they told me that her roommates had reported her missing after she hadn't seen her for over 24 hours. I tried not to panic when they told me her roommates also found the window broken that morning, and some blood staining the carpet. But there was no body down on the ground, no other traces of anything. I felt so guilty. I should have texted her more. I should have been calling and checking in on her. I had just been so distracted by work, and by this stupid app. The only thing keeping us from ruling it a suicide is the lack of a body. A female cop told me, clearly trying to be gentle. She placed a hand on my arm. Her roommate tells us she was going through a breakup. I felt myself filled with painful, searing rage. Amaya wouldn't do that. I looked the cop in the eyes, trying to make the eye contact burn. "I promise." I could tell she didn't believe me. I stayed over at Josh's place. We both shuffled around like zombies, basically communicating only through either grunts of acknowledgement or shaky, quiet conversations about any updates. There were none to talk about. I completely forgot about the app. I forgot about it until about a week after she disappeared. My phone had been buzzing nonstop the entire week, but most of the time I had it entirely shut off. Some of my messages had been from my family, Amaya's family, and our classmates and friends, and some had been from the stupid app, but I couldn't bring myself to reply to many of them at all. But then I got a notification that caught my eye. Amaya. "Hi, Cooper." It took me longer than I would like to admit to realize what I was looking at. At first I thought it was a text message, and my heart soared up into my throat. Then I realized it was the app. When I opened it up, I was bombarded with messages, both from new people and old ones. The old fear I'd felt about the app began to resurface, bubbling up like bile. "Alyssa. Cooper, I'm coming over. I can come over now. I know where you are. Can I come over? Answer me, Cooper. I'm going to come over. Jody. Meet me. Please meet me. Please meet me. Now. Now. Sunny. Cold." I ignored all of them, despite the horrible, sick feeling in my gut. I opened the one from Amaya. I looked at her profile picture. It was her. It was a picture of her I had never seen before. It was dark outside and taken with flash. Her hair was down, falling around her face in the way that she couldn't stand. Her chin tilted a little to the side. She was smiling in the way that first girl was. Wrong. Stiff and strange and wrong. That wasn't her smile. And those weren't her eyes. They were far too dull, and very slightly pointing in different directions. Cooper. Amaya, is that really you? Are you okay? The 3 bubbles popped up, then disappeared, then popped up again. I stood up, beginning to pace. Should I call Josh? Should I call the police? Was this some sort of sick joke? Finally, my phone buzzed. Amaya. I am near your home. I started to cry. I couldn't help it. I wanted to throw my phone. I wanted to break it. Where are you? What happened to you? Amaya. 10 feet. I stared at the message. I felt like my vision was going out. 10 feet from where? Amaya. It's cold here. I swallowed hard. It felt like swallowing rocks. Then I sent. Thank you for your interest, but I am not open at this time. I wish you luck in finding what you want. Amaya. 6 feet. Cold and dark. I knew what I was supposed to do. I was supposed to lock the doors and the windows, get to high ground and call customer support. But I couldn't. All I could do was stare at my phone, at her messages, frozen like a deer in headlights. And the headlights were coming so fast. I couldn't see or breathe or think. She was typing again. As my phone buzzed, my blood ran completely cold. It was 1:56 a.m. No one was there. No one but me and whatever it was. I wasn't even sure if I could stop shaking enough to call the police, and I definitely couldn't hide. Not then. And I had broken nearly all of the rules. Amaya. Let me in, Cooper. I have to show you where it took me. I finally managed to hide. I'm hiding now in my attic. I can hear it down there, dragging itself from room to room. My phone is going to die and none of my calls will go through. But I had to write this down. I had to tell someone. Josh, if you read this, I hope you're okay. I hope you followed the rules. I don't know where Amaya is, but that's not Amaya. And if you see me again, I'm not sure it'll be me either. I'm sorry. It's typing again. I've broken the last rule. I didn't delete the app. Wish me luck. Trigger warning. Suicidal ideation. I was in 3rd grade, sitting in the cafeteria when I died for the first time. Deathly allergic to peanuts, surrounded by 9-year-olds, left barely supervised with a room full of lunch trays and chaos. You know how it goes. I don't remember eating it. I don't even remember what it tasted like. Just the sudden, awful stillness. I couldn't breathe. I hit the floor, people were screaming, and then nothing. It went silent in the room. My eyes were locked on the tiled ceiling, white, sterile, humming with flickering fluorescence. I couldn't look away, couldn't move, couldn't even blink. It felt like everyone else had disappeared. I lay there for what felt like hours, unable to make a sound other than low grunts and wheezes. I was unable to move a single part of my body, no matter how hard I tried. Even my fingers and toes were locked into place. I remember wishing to die. I wished to drift off to heaven and be with my old dog again. To move, to speak, to be free. It's a terrible thing, how easily a child can come to terms with death. That's when he spoke. You are already dead. I felt warm breath on my left ear. Someone was lying next to me. I couldn't see them, but I could feel them, close enough for my skin to prickle, my hair to stand on end. Do you recognize my voice? I did. It was mine. I still couldn't move. My body spasmed in tiny bursts, every nerve screaming. I think I peed myself. I tried to scream, to cry, to do anything. There was a choked, childish sound, like someone trying hard to stay in character. All right, he said, stifling laughter. I'll cut to the chase. This is it. This is all there is. He paused as if savoring it. Maybe not here, in this lunchroom forever, but really this is it. He leaned in closer. I could feel his smile, even if I couldn't see it. You always want to speak, but no one will ever hear you. No one will ever see you. Your own personal hell, I guess. Dread spread through every part of my body. However, he continued after a few long moments of silence, I have a proposition for you. I didn't even know what proposition meant, but I had no choice but to continue listening. I can keep you here, not in this moment, but in this life. You'll grow up, have birthdays, play with your friends, pretend this never happened. There was a long silence. I felt dizzy. On one condition, he finally spoke. When the time comes, I will come back, and you will have to give me an answer to my question. Another silence stretched thin and eternal. Why was everything moving so slowly? I can't be dead. I feel mostly conscious. Why couldn't I speak? Why couldn't I move? Suddenly there was another voice, one from further away, maybe from the corner of the room. It was familiar, but it was older, more mature. It was low and quiet, but I heard it. Say no. Then came my voice again, calm, cold. You will have 3 seconds to speak. Say yes and you will wake up. Say no, and you may stay dead. Yes, I shouted the second I could feel my throat clear. Sound came rushing back like a crashing wave. Chatter, trays clattering, footsteps echoing off tile. I sat up with a gasp, sobbing, clawing at the air like I needed to prove I was real. I needed to feel something, anything. All around me kids stared, forks paused halfway to mouths, eyes wide. No one moved. What happened? I asked anybody who would answer me. A girl in my class blinked. Dude, you tell us. We were just eating and you fell backwards in your chair. Your eyes were closed for like 5 seconds. Then you shot back up all scared. You should probably go to the nurse. You hit your head pretty hard. No mention of peanuts. No mention of death. No mention of the hours and hours it felt like I was glued to the floor. I must have dreamt it all. I made my way to the nurse's office. She called my mom to come pick me up and take me to the ER to check for a concussion. And a concussion I did indeed have. I never mentioned my run-in with my imaginary doppelganger. No one would have believed me if I had. That is, until today. It's been 13 years now, and I've started to see him. For context, the past 13 years of my life have been hellish to say the least. I don't remember much from my childhood, only my parents fighting, divorce, and poverty. The week I turned 18, I moved out of my mother's house and into my own flat. I dropped out of high school when I was 16 and worked 2 crappy part-time service jobs. I never spent a dime on anything other than gas and the occasional McDonald's meal. I saved up enough for a year's rent on my apartment. I was so convinced that getting away would cure me. I would blossom in the real world. I would thrive on my own. I would create my own family. I would be happy. Every so-called real job I applied for turned me down. Every friendship or relationship cracked and fell apart before it even started. It all should have been a sign. I should have remembered what happened to me when I was 9. I should have carried that memory like a warning, but I didn't. About a year ago, I finally fell in love. I remember thinking, the only time I truly feel happy is when I'm with her. And it was true. When she came over, the apartment felt warmer. I felt warmer. There was this quiet hum in my chest that I hadn't felt in years, like I was a person again. Then one night, she showed up in tears, eyes puffy, shoulders tense. I felt that warmth drain from my body like blood from a wound. What's wrong? I asked. You cheater, she screamed, shoving her phone into my face. On the screen was a video of me kissing another girl in a packed bar. I grabbed the phone with shaking hands. I've never even been to this bar. I've never seen that girl in my life. I love you, I pleaded, desperate. She didn't blink. Are you really going to stand there and tell me that isn't you? She snapped, jabbing a finger at the video playing on her screen. There I was, same face, same hair, same clothes, same stupid little scar on my chin. It was me. But I had no memory of this. None. No, I wouldn't let myself spiral. I refused to gaslight myself. I may have been a heavy drinker, but not a blackout cheater. This wasn't me. It couldn't be. That's not me, I said softly. She stared at me like she was looking at a stranger. Fuck you. That was the last thing she ever said to me. She left, slammed the door so hard the frame rattled. She never came back for her stuff. Not the spare hoodie in my closet, not her pajamas in the hamper, not even her toothbrush, still drying quietly by the sink like it didn't know she was gone. I thought that was rock bottom, but it was only the beginning. After a few weeks of failing to pick myself up and get back to my life, I finally just got up and drove to my mom's. I didn't speak to her very often, to no fault of her own. I just didn't ever feel like talking to anyone. I felt like a burden on this world. My mom was happy to see me. She hugged me longer than usual and insisted I stay for a few nights. She made dinner every evening. We watched old movies, played cards like we used to, and for a brief moment it felt like something close to peace. We had a beautiful, quiet little weekend together. The night before I planned to head back to my apartment, she turned to me on the couch and smiled. I'm really glad we started doing this every month, she said. It's brought me so much peace. I blinked. That didn't make sense. This was the first time I'd visited her in over a year. Not because we were estranged, it was just hard. Emotionally, financially. And I'd never brought anyone with me. Not once. My first instinct was worry. Maybe she was getting older. Maybe this was early dementia creeping in. What do you mean, Mom? I haven't been here in a long time. I tried to keep my voice gentle, but I think we should start doing this every month. She gave me a strange look, half confusion, half concern. What are you talking about? She said slowly. You were here just a few weeks ago, with that blonde girl. You invited her to dinner. You even showed me the ring you said you were going to propose with. She watched me closely now. There was no sarcasm in her voice, no trace of forgetfulness or confusion in her eyes. Just steady, maternal concern. Are you feeling okay? She asked. And I didn't know what to say. Oh, yeah, my bad, I said. I quickly got my stuff together and left. These coincidences have now been happening for 2 years. A Facebook account under my name filled with photos I've never taken. Pictures of me smiling with strangers I don't recognize. At restaurants I've never been to. In cities I've never visited. Captions written in my voice, but using words I'd never use. Inside jokes with people I've never met. Birthday posts from people I don't know. Calling me things I've never been called. And it's not just online. People at gas stations and grocery stores greet me like we've been friends for years. Hey, good to see you again. How was your trip? You and that girl still together? They smile like they know me, but I've never seen their faces before in my life. When the time comes, I will come back, and you will have to give me an answer to my question. The sentence rang over and over again in my mind. It felt like a dream, like words I had never heard. Why was this sentence consuming my every thought? Why do they torment me? Why do they hurt? These words scrambled my mind for months. Months where I barely left my apartment, barely spoke to a single soul. Just me, lying in bed begging for death with a dry mouth and an empty stomach. I stopped eating, stopped drinking. When I did go outside, I wouldn't look before crossing the road, hoping deep down that something would end it for me. But I never died. Every time I caved, I ran from the oncoming headlights. I took a sip of water when my vision blurred. I forced down food when my chest started to tighten. It was like I was trapped in a body that refused to quit, a corpse pretending to live. I was dragging a dead soul through each day, and I couldn't stop myself. That's when I came to the decision I'd have to just get it out of the way. I went on a short walk around my neighborhood that night. I was going to do it. The night I was going to end it all once and for all. I touched the trees and breathed in the cold night air. Felt rain on my skin. I walked back to my apartment in a daze. Every step felt wrong, like the air itself was pushing back against me. Something deep inside me was screaming, "Do not open your door." So I didn't. I stood there frozen in the hallway, key trembling in my hand, and then the door opened on its own. But not by chance. Someone was already inside. There I was standing in the doorway. Same face, same clothes, same expression I thought I was wearing. It was me staring out at me. From inside my apartment, while I stood helplessly outside. Soft jazz music played from inside. It smelled like steak and red wine, like money, like luxury. Everything I had never had. The other me looked directly into my eyes with a smile spread across his face. I waited for him to speak as he waited for me to. I finally caved. "You," was all I got out before he cut me off suddenly. "I told you I'd come back for you, buddy," he said through a grin. "Are you ready to answer my question?" I was speechless. What was I supposed to say? How was I supposed to process this? I had just come to terms with death. Why must I come to terms with anything else? I stood there stunned, every part of me locking up. My throat tightened. Words died in my mouth. I couldn't speak. I couldn't move. The jazz music faded out, swallowed by the silence like it had never existed. Only this time in the stillness I could see him, clear as day. "Let me repeat myself," he said. "Are you ready to answer my question?" I nodded my head to the best of my ability. I didn't want to. It just felt like I had to. Like there was no getting out of this. A slow smile crept across his face. He leaned in so close our noses almost touched. I could feel his breath against my lips. Was it worth it? The only words I could croak out were weak, fractured. At least I lived. He paused like he was genuinely considering it. Then suddenly he burst into laughter. Loud, wild, unhinged. It went on for far too long. Long enough to make the moment feel absurd, almost awkward. When he finally stopped, he stared into me with eyes that didn't feel like mine anymore. "I lived," he said, voice flat now. "You survived." Then he winked, a cruel, almost affectionate gesture, and without hesitation he wrapped his hands around my throat. I didn't fight it. I didn't scream. I just let go. Let the breath leave my lungs. Let the world fade out. The life drained from my body, soaking silently into the carpet below. When my eyes opened again, I was back in the cafeteria. Same linoleum floor. Same buzzing lights. Curled up on the floor, I watched my 9-year-old body convulsing on the tile. I tried to scream, tried to move, but all I could manage was a whisper. "Say no." That's all I ever managed to say. And still, without fail, the boy on the floor always says yes. Always. I've gone through this a few times now. Sometimes I think I've made it further. Sometimes I think maybe this is the time I break the cycle, but it always catches up to me. Right now I'm writing this from inside my mom's house. It's warm, safe, smells like garlic bread and laundry detergent. I know what she's about to say. She says it every time, word for word. I'm really glad we started doing this every month. It's brought me so much peace. They say if you want to talk to the dead, you better be ready to listen. I never believed in any of that crap. Ghosts, spirits, signs from beyond. Just stories people made up to help them sleep at night. My sister Mia was one of those believers. She was obsessed with life after death. She even asked to be buried with a walkie-talkie, just in case. She died 2 years ago in a car crash. No warning, no goodbyes. One moment she was on the phone with me, complaining that she thought someone was following her. The next, just silence. They found her body 20 minutes later. I haven't been the same since. For a while I stopped answering calls completely. Just hearing the ringtone made me nauseous. But tonight, something made me pick up. Blocked flashed on my screen at 2:13 a.m. I let it ring once, twice, then answered. At first all I heard was static, faint like an old radio caught between two stations. Then a voice broke through. "Alex?" My chest tightened. It was Mia. Her voice was shaky. "Alex, listen to me. You need to get out of there. Don't trust the people in the house." I sat up so fast I almost dropped the phone. "What the hell are you talking about, Mia? How are you even—" "They're not real." Her voice grew rougher, strained. "They're not who you think they are. I didn't want to call, but I had to warn you. You're in danger." "There's no one here," I said. "I live alone." The call ended. I didn't sleep. I spent the next hour pacing around my apartment, checking every window, every lock. I opened every drawer in the wardrobe. I even looked under the bed like a 5-year-old after watching a scary movie. Nothing. No one was there. Eventually I chalked it all up to a sick prank. Or maybe a breakdown. Wouldn't be the first time my mind messed with me. Grief is a hell of a drug. Around 3:45 a.m. I went to the kitchen to pour myself a drink. Then I froze. There were 2 glasses in the sink. I'd only used one. Both were wet. I stared at them for a full minute before backing out of the kitchen. That's when I heard a sound behind me. The creak of a floorboard in the hallway. I spun around. No one was there. But the guest room door was open. I never opened that door. Since Mia died, her things have stayed in there. Her clothes, her books, the stuffed cat she'd had since she was 6. I always keep the room shut, locked. Now it was slightly open. I should have left right then, grabbed my keys and gotten the hell out, but I didn't. I stepped inside. The air was freezing. The curtains were swaying gently, though the window was shut, and on the bed sat her stuffed cat, sitting upright facing the door. It was supposed to be in a box. I knew it was in a box. Then my phone rang again. Blocked. I answered. This time her voice was barely a whisper. Urgent. Terrified. "They're watching you. Don't let them know you're scared." "Who's watching me?" I whispered. Silence. Then 3 knocks on my front door. Slow. Heavy. And then Mia said, "They're already inside." I dropped the phone and ran. Locked myself in the bathroom. I was gasping for air, trying to calm my breathing. Trying to be rational, but then I heard the front door creak open. No footsteps, just presence. Like the air itself had thickened. I pressed my ear to the bathroom door. Nothing. Then something brushed against the other side, a whisper so soft I wasn't sure it was real. Alex. My name in Mia's voice, but something was wrong. Too quiet. Drawn out. Then I remembered what she'd said on the phone. Don't trust the people in your house. But I live alone. That's when I looked up and saw something in the bathroom mirror. A reflection standing behind me. I spun around. Nothing there. I looked back at the mirror, still there. A tall shape, standing perfectly still behind me in the reflection. No face, no eyes, just a presence. And then it leaned closer, its breath against the back of my neck, and whispered, in a flawless imitation of Mia's voice, I never died, Alex. I just came home. I don't remember unlocking the door. I don't remember leaving the room. All I know is I ended up in my car half-dressed, barefoot, shaking so hard I nearly snapped the key trying to start the engine. I didn't go back until morning, in broad daylight. Neighbors walking their dogs, kids riding bikes. Everything felt safe. I went back inside. Everything looked normal except for one thing. My phone, still on the bathroom floor. It was open to my call history. Last call, Mia. No blocked, just her name. Like she was still in my contacts, but I deleted her 2 years ago. I tapped the name. Her contact profile opened. The number was still saved. 911-666-0000. I didn't call it. I smashed the phone instead. I moved out. I'm staying in a hotel now. Bought a new phone. New number. Clean slate. But last night, the landline rang. I didn't even know the room had a phone. I picked up. Static, then her voice. Alex? It was her again. You still don't get it, she said. It's not the house. Then she started to cry. I tried to warn you. I tried. What do you mean? I whispered. She sobbed harder, then choked out. You brought it with you. And the line went dead. I'm not posting for sympathy. I'm posting it as a warning. If someone you love has died and they call you, don't answer. Even if they're crying, even if it sounds like they need you, because once you answer, they know how to find you. I met Andrew through a Facebook post. I needed a roommate fast, and he messaged me 5 minutes after I posted in the local housing group. No profile picture, no mutual friends. But he said all the right things. Said he had a stable remote job, no pets, quiet, clean, respectful. I FaceTimed him once. He seemed normal. A little awkward maybe, but I didn't care. I needed rent. He moved in on Friday. By Saturday night, I wanted him out. The first red flag was the way he unpacked. He brought 4 boxes. That's it. No bed, no decorations, not even a backpack. The boxes were taped tight and he carried them one at a time, always holding them away from his body, like they might bite. I offered to help. He didn't answer, just smiled, then took the last box into his room and shut the door. I didn't see him the rest of the day. Around midnight, I heard him whispering in there. Couldn't make out the words. It sounded like a prayer, or maybe a list. He didn't stop until 3 a.m. The next morning, I went to make coffee. The kitchen was spotless. My cereal box was in the fridge. My coffee beans had been alphabetized, and there was a note on the counter in blocky, perfect handwriting. I replaced your sponge. The old one had too many eyes. I stood there staring at it for a full minute. Then I opened the cupboard. New sponge, bright yellow. And on the floor beneath the sink, the old one, soaked, covered in black mold I swear wasn't there the day before. The middle was ripped open, like it had teeth. That night I locked my bedroom door. Around 2:11 a.m. I heard footsteps outside it. Slow, barefoot, careful, then a knock. Not loud, not aggressive, just two soft taps. I didn't move. Another knock. 3 this time. Slightly faster. "Andrew?" I asked. No reply. I checked the peephole, no one there. When I opened the door, the hallway was empty, but another note was taped to the wall. "Don't answer until the 3rd knock." She gets impatient. I didn't sleep after that. I confronted him the next day. He was sitting in the living room facing the blank TV screen. When I asked what the notes were about, he blinked slowly and said, "You heard her, didn't you?" "Heard who?" "She doesn't like being seen too soon. It ruins her." Then he turned back to the blank TV, smiling. I backed into my room and locked the door. That night I heard him whispering again, not to himself this time. I could hear the difference. He was answering someone, listening, nodding between each line. I pressed my ear to the wall. His voice came through clearer. "She wants to know your name," he said. "She wants to wear it." I stopped sleeping in the apartment after that. I stayed at a friend's for a night. No calls, no messages from Andrew, but I got a voicemail, no number, just unknown. 30 seconds of breathing, then whispering, then right before it ended, my own voice saying, "Let me back in." I hadn't said that. I came home the next day planning to kick him out, tell him to pack up his 4 boxes and leave. But the boxes were gone. All that was left in his room was a circle of salt around the bed, symbols drawn in the carpet, charcoal, I think, or blood, and one last note. "Don't break the circle. She likes you. She might not stop at your name." I called the police. They found the room empty. No Andrew, no salt, no symbols. Just an empty room with bare walls and cold air. They asked if I'd been drinking. That night the knocking came again. 2:14 a.m. 3 soft knocks. I didn't move. Then I heard a voice right outside the door, high-pitched, childlike, trying too hard to sound friendly. "I have your name." It scratched at the wood. "I want to give it back." I didn't answer. At 3 a.m. on the dot, it stopped. The next morning the hallway was covered in fingerprints, tiny like a child's, burned into the paint. There was another note slipped under my door. "She's inside now. Don't let her out. She wears new faces. You won't recognize them until they smile." I haven't seen Andrew since. I don't think I ever really met him, but I hear the knocking every night, always the same time, and always one knock closer. I'm always so tired after going home. The fluorescent scream of the office lights still echoes behind my eyes, even here in the blessed dimness of the stairwell. I climb 3 flights, each step feeling like I'm dragging an anvil chained to my ankle. My key finds the lock on apartment 3B. My lock. The deadbolt thunks open. I shoulder the door in, smelling the faint, comforting ghost of last night's cheap instant noodles, and the dusty warmth trapped inside. I don't even make it to the bedroom. The sagging, familiar embrace of my old couch in the living room calls out. I sink into it, the springs groaning their familiar complaint beneath my weight. The fabric smells faintly of dust and me as sleep drags me under. A few hours later, I jolt awake in terror as a hand grabs my shoulder and shakes me violently. "Hey, hey!" someone shouts. I jerk awake, gasping, disoriented. Silver moonlight cuts the room into sharp shapes and deep, pooling shadows. A man leans over me, his face gaunt with sweat in the gloom. His eyes are wide, wild marbles reflecting the weak light. "Get up! What the hell are you doing in my apartment?" His voice is a harsh rasp, cutting straight through whatever dream I was trapped in. Panic surges through me. I lurch upright, heart pounding. "You what?" I blink hard, trying to steady my vision. No, this is my apartment. This is 3B. I live here." The man takes a step back, just enough to half merge with the shadows by the doorway. "Are you out of your damn mind? I live in 3B. What are you even doing here?" "I don't know who you are," I say, trying to sound firm, authoritative, anything but panicked. "But you need to leave before I call the police." "Oh, I need to leave? That's rich. You broke into my place and you're threatening me?" I run a hand through my hair, eyes flicking to the hallway. Could I shove him out and lock the door? Could I grab my phone? Where is my phone? And call someone? I take a cautious step toward him, hands half raised. "Look, I don't know what this is. Maybe you got the wrong floor or something. Or maybe you're confused, but this is my apartment, all right? You don't live here." He stares at me. Then with sharp, jerking movements, he points towards the kitchenette. "Oh yeah? Then tell me that's your owl mug." I follow his finger. A chipped blue owl mug sits on the coffee table like a trap. I blink. I don't know. That's not mine." "Damn right it's not," he snaps. "That's my mug. And where's my sailboat painting? I had it right here." He jabs a finger toward the wall above the TV. "Are you a thief?" I turn. My faded Swiss Alps poster is gone. In its place, a garish print of a sailboat on water so blue it looks fake. Wait, I had a poster there. Mountains, Swiss Alps. I swear it was there. The man just stares at me, chest rising and falling fast. I hold up my hands like I'm warding off a wild animal. "Okay, maybe I screwed up." My voice wavers, half swallowed by the silence. "Maybe I'm wrong. I must have come in the wrong door. I didn't mean to. Shit, I'm so sorry." I take a step back, knees weak. "I'll go, all right? I'll just get my stuff and go." But something stops me. I glance back at the coffee table, at the blue owl mug. It's not just unfamiliar. It's wrong. The eyes aren't painted right. They're uneven. One stares forward, the other's cocked sideways, like it's watching the hallway behind me. The man hasn't moved. His expression has changed, less angry now, more uncertain. His eyes flick from the wall to the table to me. "I don't remember this table being glass," he says quietly. I look down. The table's wood. It's always been wood. "What are you talking about?" I ask, but my voice is too soft to sound confrontational. "No, it was glass," he mutters. "Round, had a chip on the edge from when I dropped the takeout. This one's wood, square. And that lamp?" He turns slowly. "That's not my lamp." Something creaks in the bedroom. Neither of us move. "I think," he says, breath fogging lightly in the suddenly cold air. "I think this isn't your apartment. Or mine." The frantic anger is gone, replaced by a mirror of my own icy fear. "Keys," he rasps, digging into his pocket with trembling fingers. He pulls out a key ring. "We need to get out of here. We'll figure out what the hell's going on outside." My own keys are cold, heavy lumps in my hand. We don't speak again. The silence is a suffocating presence, thick with the smell of decay and the unnerving feeling of being watched by the very shadows that clings to the walls. The hallway to the door seems longer than it should be. I take a step and the carpet squelches faintly beneath my foot. I glance down. The floor looks the same, beige, ugly, a little stained, but now I don't trust it. Behind us, the bedroom door creaks again, only this time it doesn't stop. It opens slowly with the hush of breath sliding between teeth. He doesn't turn, neither do I. "Don't look back," he whispers. His voice shakes. "Just walk." We move, inching forward. Every object in the living room seems shifted. The couch leans ever so slightly toward the wall. Cushions caved in like something heavy just rose from them. The bookshelf is missing a shelf. My hand tightens around the key ring. The keys rattle too loudly, like they're trying to call attention to us, like they want something else to hear. "We're almost there," I murmur, not sure who I'm trying to reassure, him or myself. The front door is 10 feet away. 8. A soft knock echoes from inside the bedroom. The man beside me flinches. I don't dare look. The temperature drops. My breath fogs the air, hangs there, then drifts backward against the laws of physics. I choke on it. This place, this thing, it's copying us. Badly. The front door looms closer now, but the handle seems off, longer than I remember. He reaches the door first, his hand trembling violently as he tries to jam his key into the deadbolt. It scrapes uselessly against the plate. It won't fit. Panic edges back into his voice. "It should just unlock from inside," I hiss, my hand closing over the cold knob. I twist. It turns freely. Thank God. With a surge of desperate hope, I yank the door open. We stumble out together into the hallway, gasping lungfuls of stagnant, unmoving air. It tastes thick with dust, and that same underlying damp decay. The hallway light fixture is shattered, glass shards glittering dully on the floor below. Weak, gray, pre-drawn light filters from the grimy window at the far end, revealing a scene that stops us dead. The hallway is a ruin. Wallpaper hangs in long, moldering strips, revealing crumbling plaster underneath. The carpet is threadbare, stained with dark, unidentifiable patches, pulled up in places to show warped floorboards. Doors to other apartments hang askew on broken hinges, revealing glimpses of darkness within. Cobwebs thick as gauze drape the corners and ceiling. The air is frigid, smelling overwhelmingly of damp rot, mildew, and neglect. Utter, absolute desolation. "This," the man beside me whispers, his voice cracking. "This building, it's condemned. Look." He points a shaking finger towards a large, official notice nailed crookedly to the wall opposite my door. Our door, apartment 3B. The notice is faded, water-stained, and the bold red letters are unmistakable. Condemned. Structurally unsound. Entry prohibited. My blood turns to ice. We both slowly turn to look back at the door we just emerged from, apartment 3B. The wood is warped, the paint blistered and peeling. A thick layer of grime coats the surface, thick as old moss. The number 3B is barely visible beneath it, the brass digits green with corrosion. The keyhole looks rusted shut. It looks like it hadn't been used in years. The man raises his hand, slowly, like shifting the keys costs him something. I look down at mine, both identical, both for 3B, both seemingly useless against the decayed reality before us. Yet they worked moments ago. He meets my eyes. Our keys hang limp in our hands. The only sound is the frantic hammering of our hearts and the silence. And then the shadows behind the door shift. At first I almost miss it. Just a flicker of movement in the dark, a smudge of black deeper than the shadows. But then it pushes forward, slow and deliberate. It isn't a person. Not quite. The shape doesn't hold together right. Limbs bend where they shouldn't. Joints jutting at broken angles. Where a face should be, there's only a hollowed-out suggestion of one, like a mask left too close to a flame. And the worst part? The hallway isn't big enough for it. The ceiling should scrape its skull, the walls should press against its shoulders, but it keeps coming anyway, folding itself into the space like it's bending the apartment around it. The shape tilts its head. My ribs clamp tight, breath trapped like a live thing in my throat. The man beside me makes a sound, not quite a whimper, maybe a prayer. A wet crack splits the silence. The door frame splinters. Just a hairline fracture, but it sounds like a gunshot in the still air. We run, stairs blur underfoot. We don't stop until concrete turns to asphalt, until the sky bleeds dawn. Our eyes meet, a silent scream passing between us. My stomach drops as reality rearranges itself in my mind. This isn't right. The street signs are unfamiliar. The buildings wear strange colors. And that terrible, clawing realization. I don't live in an apartment. I own a house, a blue colonial. A mailbox with mine and Olivia's names painted on the side. A garage where my daughter's bike leans against the wall. Cold sweat trickles down my back. How did we get inside that place? Who let us in? But the most chilling question lingers between us, unspoken. What in God's name did we just escape from? "4:22 a.m. I'm on the back patio and I haven't moved in what feels like hours. It won't let me leave and it won't go away. Every second that I stand here typing and staring at this thing is agony. It keeps its face pressed against the glass so its large features stretch into this horrible expression. It's inside the house, only a few feet away behind the sliding glass door. I think it came from the woods. I can see past it, past the hallway and the living room. The front door is wide open. Such an idiot. I never lock it back home, but here in the middle of the forest, I should have known there are worse things than thieves and raccoons. It's tall, thin, and crooked. Its skin is leathered and splotched. There's patchy hair that withers from its scalp in long black strings. Its hands are gripping the glass, shaking. It's shaking now, and it still hasn't looked away from me. And I can say the same. I can't move. My family's still inside, sleeping, but for some reason I can't move. There's a feeling that if I look away from its bulging eyes for too long, if I lose focus, it'll get me. I'm writing this in case this thing doesn't leave when the sun comes up. I don't know how I know, but I'm certain that when morning comes, this thing will leave me and my family alone. But if it doesn't, then God have mercy on us. 4:46 a.m. It's cold. I'm losing feeling in my toes. The snow I'm standing in has melted into my shoes. I didn't think I'd be outside for this long. Just a quick cigarette and enjoy the northern stars. That's when I saw it. I had just made out the Big Dipper, and in the corner of my eye, with this gray line near the top of the sliding glass door, I traced it down, and it was the thing's finger. It was looking at me with its hands in the air like someone surprising a friend at a birthday party. I don't know how long it had been there already. I jumped to my feet, and when I did, it smashed its face into the glass hard enough to crack it near the top. I froze, and it did too. It's huge. My body's telling me that I'm in danger, and the best thing I can do is stay as perfectly still as possible. Just don't move. I remember glancing at the clock before stepping out for the smoke. It was 2:55 a.m. I don't know how much longer I can last. The crack in the glass keeps growing. 5:18 a.m. It moved. I couldn't bear it anymore. My entire left foot went numb 10 minutes ago. I tried to lift it and give it a shake to bring the blood back, but I lost my balance. I stumbled back a few steps, and when I looked back up, it was gone. Gone from the sliding door. It too had retreated a few steps back into the house, back towards the open front door, towards the stairs leading to my sleeping family. It raised one of its fingers towards the ceiling. It must have been 6 inches long. The other hand brought another finger to its thin lips. Shh. I understood. I returned to my original spot, and it pushed itself into the glass once again, smearing its face. I can hear the glass cracking. 5:51 a.m. Can't be much longer now. Sunrise is late here, I know that, but surely not later than 6. We aren't that far north. Can't be much longer. Can't be much longer. 6:42 a.m. It's taking ages just to type the time. My fingers don't move well, getting hard to keep my eyes open. Where is the dawn? It's still as dark as it was at midnight. It's still watching me. 8:30 a.m. My family should be up by now. Back home we always make sure we're moving bright and early. The wind sounds like voices. It hurts, biting into the back of my legs. Is it horrible that I'm comforted by the fact that I won't feel it when my whole body goes numb? I don't think the sun will ever rise. I think this thing knows that too, because it keeps breaking into these violent shaking fits. Laughing. It's laughing at me. I'm laughing too. I can't stop laughing. I don't know what time it is. I just jolted awake. I was asleep on my feet. On my cold black feet. The sliding glass door looks like a kaleidoscope. All the pretty cracks crisscrossing and splintering. Hope it's not getting too cold in there. I told them where the extra blankets are, but I still want them to get a good sleep. We have a big day of hiking ahead of us. It's smiling at me. It wasn't before, but now I can see layered rows of pearled white shark teeth, as white as the snow. I can see them well because it's still as dark as it was at midnight. But it can't be much longer now. We aren't that far north. Surely, it can't be much longer now. The house was a steal. That should have been the first red flag. A 3-bedroom craftsman with a wraparound porch for less than the cost of my cramped 2-bedroom apartment. It was in a quiet, secluded division called Maple Creek, where all the lawns were impossibly green and the neighbors waved with all 5 fingers. The HOA president, a woman named Carol with a smile as bright and hard as a porcelain doll's, met me on my first day. She handed me a welcome basket with a bottle of cheap Chardonnay and a single laminated sheet of paper. "We're so glad to have you, Mark," she said, her eyes crinkling in a way that didn't seem genuine. "We're very relaxed here at Maple Creek. We don't have rules about lawn heights or fence colors. We only have one." She tapped a perfectly manicured nail on the laminated sheet. On it, in a large, friendly font, were the words, "Rule number 1. If you see a pet that appears lost or in distress, do not approach it. Do not feed it. Do not let it into your home. Go inside, lock your doors, and ignore it until it is gone." I laughed, thinking it was a joke. "What, are the raccoons organized crime around here?" Carol smiled and wavered. "It's not a suggestion, Mark. It's the only thing we require of you. It is for the safety and harmony of the community." Her tone was light, but her eyes were dead serious. It was the first time I felt a chill in the warm afternoon air. For the first month, it was perfect. Quiet, peaceful. I almost forgot about the bizarre rule. I'd see people walking their dogs on leashes, cats sunning themselves on porches. They were clearly owned, clearly where they were supposed to be. The rule seemed like a weird quirk from a bygone era. Then came the storm last night. It was a real gully washer, with thunder that shook the windows and rain that came down in sheets. It was around midnight when I heard it, a sound that cut through the noise of the storm, a pathetic, high-pitched whine. I peered through my living room window. Huddled under the eave of my porch, shivering and soaked, was a golden retriever. It was beautiful, with big, sad eyes and a leather collar, but no tags. Every time the thunder cracked, it would press itself against my door and cry. My heart broke. The laminated card was sitting on my counter, and Carol's words echoed in my head. Go inside, lock your doors, and ignore it. But how could I? It was just a dog, a scared, lost animal. What was the worst that could happen? I'd be breaking some stupid, arbitrary rule from a power-tripping HOA president. So I did it. I opened the door. The dog practically fell inside, shaking a puddle onto my hardwood floor. It looked up at me with such gratitude, nudging its wet head into my hand. I got it a towel and a bowl of water, and it immediately settled down on my rug, letting out a contented sigh. I felt a wave of relief. See? Just a dog. I fell asleep on the couch watching TV. I was woken up a few hours later by a sound that wasn't the storm. Knock, knock, knock. A slow, deliberate knock on my front door. The rain had stopped. The dog on the floor lifted its head, let out a low growl, and then strangely trotted to the door, its tail giving a single, lazy wag. I looked through the peephole. Standing on my porch was a man. He was tall, impossibly tall, dressed in a neat, old-fashioned suit, like a door-to-door salesman from the 1950s. He was smiling, a wide, friendly smile that showed too many teeth, all of them perfectly straight and white. I opened the door a crack, my hand still on the chain. Can I help you? Good evening, the man said, his voice smooth and pleasant. I do apologize for the late hour. I believe you found my dog. He gestured with his head toward the retriever, who was now sitting patiently at his feet, looking up at him. Oh, yeah, he was out in the storm, I said, my relief making me feel foolish for ever being scared. Glad you found him. The tall man's smile widened, stretching his face in a way that felt unnatural. He has a habit of getting out. He's a bit of a rascal. He leaned forward, his eyes, dark and unblinking, locking onto mine, but he's very good at his job. My blood ran cold. His job? The man chuckled, a dry, rustling sound. He reached down and patted the dog's head. Of course, he said, his gaze never leaving mine. His job is to find the kindest person in the neighborhood. He straightened up, his towering frame seeming to block out all the light from the porch. Thank you so much for your hospitality, the man said, his smile finally reaching his eyes, which now glinted with a terrifying, hungry light. He likes you very much. He decided he wants you to meet the rest of the family. My mind screamed at me to slam the door. Slam it, lock it, run. But my body wouldn't obey. I was a statue, my hand frozen on the door. The man's smile never faltered as he gave the door a gentle push. The brass security chain didn't snap or break. It stretched, elongating like taffy with a soft metallic groan before falling away, limp and useless. There now, he said pleasantly. That's better. He didn't enter. He simply took a step back and gestured with an open palm toward the street. It wasn't a command, it was an invitation, and for reasons I can't explain, I found myself stepping out onto the porch. The golden retriever trotted ahead of us, its tail held high. The air was different out here. The storm had washed everything clean, but the world felt muted, like I was looking at it through a pane of smoked glass. The streetlights cast long, distorted shadows that seemed to writhe and twist at the edges of my vision. As we walked, I noticed other things. A sleek black cat emerged from beneath a hedge, its eyes glowing with a faint phosphorescence. It fell into step beside the retriever, A few houses down, a parrot was perched on a mailbox. It didn't squawk or speak. It just swiveled its head, tracking our progress in perfect silence. They were all moving with us, in honor guard of silent, watchful animals. I looked at the houses we passed. Through their big picture windows, I could see my neighbors. They were frozen in place like mannequins in elaborate dioramas. One family was sitting around a dinner table, forks raised halfway to their mouths. In another house, a man was stopped mid-stride, one foot hovering over the floor. They were all facing our direction, their faces blank, their eyes wide and vacant. "Don't mind them," the tall man said, noticing my gaze. "They're very good at following the rules." We were heading toward the end of the cul-de-sac to the oldest house on the block, a large colonial that had been dark and seemingly empty since I'd moved in. As we got closer, I could feel a low vibration through the soles of my shoes, a deep hum that seemed to emanate from the house itself. The golden retriever led the procession up the walkway and sat patiently before the heavy oak door. The other animals formed a silent semicircle behind